originally had Riley on our team because she moved away, but then Ben took over. It was their first time though, Riley and Paxton. So I think they liked it. And then our second competition was pretty straightforward. It it was pretty good. It was another experience that helped us on our way to states. And then we had a few tournaments here and there. And then we got to states, we qualified for states. We were paired up with the Canterbury team, and we got 43 points in the final rounds, which got us to Worlds, and we were so excited there.
What is the challenge with the robot? What
What?
does the robot do?
Okay, so, there are 4 goalposts, and it shoots the ball. Yeah, one of those balls with an arm up into the goals, and they get a certain amount of points depending on some statistics. And then the ball gets reloaded and the robot can pass.
How high is the arc for that ball?
The arm,
The arc.
of the arc.
Yeah, so is this?
Would you just shoot one? Can you?
I'd like to show that they're gonna demonstrate.
Shoot it towards Rajesh since he,
A fair game.
Commissioner.
It's a commissioner.
So the name of their game this year, boys?
Is the rapid relay.
Ready? Great.
Yeah.
Come on, Sam.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
You just let me know, okay?
Oh, look out.
Okay.
And then it
So that was what, the low one?
Yeah. Wait, what?
Would that have gotten into the low basket or
Yeah.
the low?
So yeah, the goals are here, and there are 4, 2 low and 2 high. And depending on how far you are, it goes into the higher low. You go pick that up.
And one of the differences between this and first is they're working together. So both teams are working together to score the point.
So they have to work not only on how they drive their own robot, but how they drive together in a challenge with
wait.
someone they've never worked with.
Wait, stop. I'm gonna pass.
And we can pass.
Me and Timmy have created a strategy that is, if we put the ball right in front of the robot and we push it forward and then the other team grabs it, that counts as a pass. The other team will do it and that also counts as a pass.
How many other contenders in your competition knew that?
Probably.
Nice.
Probably.
That was fast. Yeah, that was a good one. Wow.
First down.
Nice.
How long is a heat?
Yeah.
So each run is 1 minute, 60 seconds. So
Yeah, and
each,
halfway on your team, you have to have at least 2 people because halfway you switch, you give the controller to another person on the team. And so they can drive for their second half. So, if you have 2 or 3 people on the team, 2 people get to have some time to,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's the loader. So when a ball gets shot into one of the goalposts, the ball is reloaded into another zone on the other side of the field. And that it is reloaded so the ball can get so the robots can get the ball again.
You play a different game every year, correct?
Yeah.
So every
Every
year
year.
we tear apart the robot and they start over.
Like first about it. So
A little.
Smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
This is very
smaller.
similar, it's close enough, they'll all understand it that way,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Lego pieces, so, yeah.
They're dancing.
Do you have a video you said to show what they, when they won?
So any other questions? I want to show you the last heat, which actually got them the ticket.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really extraordinary because these are the two first public elementary schools to make it to the world.
Wow.
So in New Hampshire. So it's a
And where is World?
in Dallas, Texas. So fortunately, Commissioner, you missed earlier, I was thanking the DOE for providing the grant. And the cost for this trip was a lot. So we were able to capitalize on unspent robotics funds to help defray the cost for us because it's about $14,000. Yeah, oh, yeah.
They were very excited, but then to think, wait, we can't afford it. So it was one of those roller coaster of emotions. They won and they were thrilled and they were like, wait a minute. But this, yeah, thanks to you. This
I'm gonna
is something we
try
can
this, guys.
accomplish.
I don't know if we'll get it through because it's wonky. Okay, let's see. Of course, all of my, oh.
Each school participate in this program.
So in
How
our,
many kids in each school participate? Go ahead.
in our school, we have 65 children from pre-K to sixth grade, but we only allow fourth and up to participate in a robotics program. And usually I have roughly 12 kids and it's a good mix of boys and girls. And I usually end up with roughly 3 to 4, sometimes 5 teams, depending on how many kids were allowed on a team. This year was the first year we needed 3 kids on a team to play this game. So we had to shrink down our team numbers in order to have enough for the robot to be able to function.
And does each team make their own robot?
Yes,
And they
each
have to
team.
design on their own, or is it a standard design that's already given?
Yeah.
There's so
There's.
other teams can like design it how they want, but we use what's called the Swish robot. So it's like a basic design model that's like supposed to be able to do a fair amount of things for the game that year.
And then you can
That's
just make, add stuff to make it, more efficient, like how my team added this bumper, so it can just go up to the wall and shoot.
And we added more rubber bands on the intake wheel.
Our teams don't meet as often as most teams do. We're a club instead of a program built within the school. So they have much less time to work on it. So they start with the base robot and then modify it. And then other teams usually have more intense robots. So the fact that they made it this far is even more phenomenal.
So you have
Yeah.
limitations on the size and the weight and all. Now, I was a first robotics coach before.
Hmm.
So, we used to have all those kind of restrictions on this.
It's familiar,
Also,
it's a little bit similar.
Also, our team, our school doesn't actually have a club or anything. At the start, since my brother does the V5 robotics or the metal robots, I was playing around with it and I got basically a functioning robot and I wanted to, since I had a functioning robot, I was talking to, got Owen onto our team, we did the Belmont Bash. And then we got another player on our team for states, but he can't go to Worlds. But we didn't really have much time to be together because since it's not a club, we have to meet at my house instead of at the school.
Wonderful. Do you want me to try the video? Let's see if I can do it. Let me just see if
Yeah.
I can't promise anything, but let's see if it comes through.
Oh, yeah.
One in the red shirt was our third.
Teams, are you ready? Yes, our referees are ready. Audience, are you ready? Audience, come on. I'm very persistent, I'll keep asking. Let's get this match started in 3, 2, 1, go.
we pass to each other. And once we collect those, that's
Pass the ball to each other, giving themselves more points when those balls are scored. Yeah. Great job. We get a switch and a goal. Harry Potter getting a switch, no goal. Still plenty of time left in this match. 6 seconds to go.
Yeah, they switched drivers, the 30-second mark.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Potter's gonna line up. Jenny D. Blake making their way up.
yeah, there's 10 seconds between where you can switch.
Seconds to go.
There it is.
Jenny D. Blake lining up again.
Yes.
Switches have been activated. 5 seconds to go.
So that ball is reloaded.
Kind of like our last robot. Second, I
And that-
get it.
That originally got us, or it got us 43 points, which
So what place were you in when you participated in that final?
Second,
I was
we
in
were
5th or 6th.
You guys were 4 and 5 or 5 and 6?
third and fourth.
3 and
Yeah.
4, okay. So they weren't in first or second place when they ended up winning this entire challenge. So that's pretty
We were very
impressive.
surprised.
Very
Like,
surprised, as
what's
well as
last?
you don't just participate in the teamwork challenge with your robots. What else do you do with your robots?
We do skills, where you can drive and you can also do autonomous skills.
Autonomous.
Autonomous is
So you-
like a coding that it does the robot itself.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So can you show your program real quick?
Yeah.
So they worked to code to do this as well as a challenge, so they can participate on 3 different levels at every competition. They can work as a team in the teamwork challenges together, and then they can use their robot alone on a field to play the game just driving. And then they can do autonomous where they've coded their robot to play the game on its own. So that's what these guys are gonna show you.
We're gonna need to get some extra room. So you don't know if we,
Do you want to explain to what it would be?
So, the goal wall would be like, I don't know exactly, but it'd be somewhere around here. And what we coded our robot to do is, if this is the wall, to come out and shoot the bottom goal, then come back, shoot the top goal, and then just repeat over and over again.
Wow.
Until the time,
So,
Two goals.
more than 2 actually.
until the time runs out.
I think it goes to 10.
So,
But you can put a ball on the field.
Yeah.
You know.
that was. No, wait, so you
My robots.
You only have 1 minute to do this all.
Yeah, there's no switching in the timer. No grabbing.
Sometimes it has a little.
A glitch in the matrix.
And then it stops at 1 minute.
Wow.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very.
Oh,
What kind of coding do you use to do your autonomous?
It's block code. And I forget, it's block coding, like if you,
Scratch.
yeah, like kind of like scratch. So you can do all sorts of movements, sounds and stuff like
The
that.
underlying program is Python, so it's a lot there.
Any questions for the kids?
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
So I have a question for you guys.
So
What-
proud of you guys.
What did you learn about team, having to work together? And you both had to do that, not only in your own school teams, but with another team. What are your big takeaways from that?
The one thing that I think helped us a lot was at the end, we were talking a lot, but I noticed that the other team that was the first and second, they had like one practice run together. But since we had many practice runs together, I'm pretty sure we had like 3 or 4. We were able to make a plan and get to know each other's robots so we could work together really well.
Yeah, I think we hosted our event an event at our school. And during that event, we were paired up with a team that we practiced like over and over again before the finals. And we did really good just because of that run. And because we knew what we were doing really well, made sure we each knew what it was. what
How
we
many
were
of you
doing.
want to become scientists and engineers?
Mm,
Walt, show me how.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
One last thing I one last thing I want to point out is that coaches are not allowed to touch the robots in any way, shape, or form, or the coding. So from start to finish, this is 100% independent student-run program. So they did all of this, all the problem solving, all the modifications, all the coding
All the
from-
crying.
on their own. Yep.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you guys so much
Thank
for your
you.
contributions.
Oh, boy, no pressure. All right, let's pack up and get out of Dodge.
I have one more thing to say.
Yes.
You know the bumper? Well, Timmy actually created it because I was the one who had trouble lining up. And I noticed that none of the teams we went up against didn't have a bumper on their robot.
Smart. Nice job, Timmy.
Have an extra peg on ours if the rubber bands run out of a little energy, we can move them up one so they have more energy.
Yeah, so you can reuse our.
You have to be careful, you're being recorded, so you're telling everybody else you see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. Great. It's gonna be great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This way. Are you going to Dallas now?
I don't think, it's probably, Worlds is at the end of April, it's in North South. Cause I know the first is at the end of April, and I think this one.
Just working
So,
together.
what is, it's not first robotics, what is the title?
This is Vex.
Vex.
Sorry. We have Candace.
Yeah, Candace is back now. So Phil, just so like Vex is a little bit more structured, like the
Yeah.
components are a little bit more kit.
Yeah, I'm thinking that one.
Yeah.
Hi. Well, before I start, Frank, I don't know if you remember, but back in December, me, you, and Governor Ayotte had a conversation about Taylor Swift. And you had a lot of questions about friendship bracelets.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay.
Donation box, Frank.
That is awesome, thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
Now I know what a friendship bracelet is. Okay.
Now you know, you understand the importance
Well, you know.
of Swiftyhood. Yeah.
Now,
Frank's gonna be buying me my front row seats.
Yeah.
the next day, when the Eras tour comes back again, because I'm holding out. Also, before I start, did I have your daughters in class?
I don't have daughters, so no.
You don't have daughters, so no, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I was looking, I was like, fine, I had an Olivia Klein before.
I
And,
don't know her.
okay, never mind then.
It is not a super common name in New Hampshire, so.
No, so I was like,
Yeah,
oh my
good.
gosh, but it was like not many years ago. It feels like many years ago because it was like COVID. It was like
Yeah.
2020 and I was like,
I know.
like
Yeah.
okay, never mind.
Good.
Could have, maybe. It was a shot. So hi, everybody. My name's Candace Angelis, and I'm like so honored to be here today and to be serving as this year's 2025 New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. I'm so thrilled to be kind of talking about what, like a firsthand experience and a firsthand account of what it's like to be kind of like in New Hampshire schools today. I am a high school Spanish teacher at Bedford High School. I teach level 2, I've taught level 3, and I teach in our IB program. So I teach IB Spanish 4 that goes into IB Spanish 5. We're in the midst of some crazy testing. I just sat down for 3 days straight where we do, it's basically a 30-minute conversation with me in Spanish that's recorded and sent to the IB program. I don't know if I could have done that as a high school student. So like, I feel like I have to take this moment and kind of like brag about these seniors in high school who are sitting here having one-on-one conversations about cultural themes and like just wild things that are happening with their Spanish as 17-year-olds. But since I was 8 years old, I have lived here in New Hampshire. I grew up in Londonderry. I graduated a proud Lancer. I'm about to send, I don't know if you know about like the politics between high school sports, but I am about to send my 8th grade son to Pinkerton Academy. And as a Lancer, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of pressure in my high school life of sending my son to become an Astro. But after high school, I attended Keene State College where I majored in Spanish with secondary education. I studied abroad in Puerto Rico for a semester, which then I called my parents and said, hey, I'm staying here for a little bit longer. And they were like, what? But there was never a doubt in my mind about teaching in a New Hampshire public school. My first job was at Parkside Middle School in Manchester. I learned quickly that maybe middle school just wasn't my forte. And after my first year, I decided I'm going to give a shot at high school. And I found myself at Sanborn Regional High School for 10 years, teaching through all of the levels, department head for the time. We brought PLCs, we brought competencies. I worked alongside Brian Stack in trying to, I'm sure you guys probably know Brian, but in working in kind of creating competencies. But from there, I decided to move on and I found myself at my, like, you know, when you like go and you find like your home that you're gonna like build your family in, you call it like your forever home. I found my forever school at Bedford High School. I like to describe Bedford High School as sometimes it feels like I'm walking on the set of High School Musical. It's a really magical place where like we have like just random spirit days and everybody participates. It's a different dynamic. Despite I did have a quick little like interim where I went back to Londonderry for a hot second where I taught 2 AP Spanish classes because they didn't have somebody to teach their AP Spanish. So I went there. I do not recommend that. So if you ever have any educators coming into in your lives, you're like, I think I'm gonna work at 2 schools at the same time. It is very difficult. But I wanted to give back. It's my alma mater. I'm a Lancer and I did it. But education, more specifically New Hampshire education, it runs deep within me. As a teacher, I strive to be creative, innovative, and engaging while making sure that my students know that I'm in their corner and I'm always going to be there for them. One of the biggest issues that I think we're facing today is that we're living in a digital age. Our students have been born into a world that I don't think any of us ever would have imagined when we were in school. They're growing up with opportunities and changes. And my first goal here today actually is to commend Governor Ayotte with her push towards banning cell phones in public schools. At Bedford, over the past 2 years, we have actually instituted and implemented a school-wide policy where when students walk in during instructional time, they have to take their phones and they put them in a holder. We have an extraordinarily supportive administration that has every teacher's back. And it has been so successful. I will tell you, last year I started like scrambling because I was actually 2 weeks ahead of my curriculum of where I was. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to start making more things. My kids were working so much harder. They were engaging and they were participating in their learning so much more. And by having this support through the state, we're conveying this message that cell phones, they are disruptive towards our students' learning. And we need to learn how, or our students, and we need to help guide them towards healthy relationships with technology. So I'm really excited for this, like kind of this next step, because I've seen it firsthand as to how incredible it is. Our students are constantly connected to their devices, to their parents, to their friends, through this like imaginary wire. And through observation and conferences, I mean, I've done all of the research. I mean, I think that's like what teachers do, right? We're constantly learning. That technology is an incredible tool. I use it in my classroom all of the time, and there's a push for it. And then when the Wi-Fi goes down, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do now? But at its core, education is about relationships though. It's about the relationships that we build with our students. One of the things that I've done as this year's Teacher of the Year is I've given I have like a menu of things that I like can talk about with like, I've been going to like some universities and I've spoken to like new teacher groups. It's about the importance of building relationships with our students. And I think it's one of the most powerful aspects of teaching are these relationships that we can build with students. As a Spanish teacher, most people think like, oh, she's conjugating verbs, she's memorizing things, and she's teaching them about like cultural experiences. And you mean, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that. But it also requires to be vulnerable, to take risks, and it's intimidating. And like we all know, like your teen years are hard enough, right? Like it's some hard times. And if you're sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say this wrong. What if I don't understand this right? It's scary. However, my students know that in my classroom, it is a safe place to take a risk and make a mistake and to grow from there. And I could tell you guys thousands of stories, like success stories and not so successful stories. But I have a student who constantly, he like lives in like the back of my mind from 2017, and his name is Michael Giordano. Michael he like to this day is an incredibly dynamic. He's engaged and he's passionate about making a difference. This is a challenging time in my former school district, not in Bedford, in my former school district. He decided to give back to his community that had shaped him throughout the 12 years. And while he was like applying to some really crazy colleges, and I don't know if you guys have children who are currently applying to colleges. I remember when I applied to college, it was like 5, right? Like you pick like your 2 safe schools, your reach school and whatever, right? This kid, like kids are applying to like 12 to like upwards towards. I had a student this year who I wrote a college recommendation for, and we have like this whole online system, 32 colleges. I emailed that kid and I was like, nope, like you are not allowed to apply to that many schools. It's like, but what if? I'm like, all right. But while he was applying to all of these schools, and at this time in like 2017, they were like, I would say the average amount of schools kids were applying to were around 12. He probably applied to around 12 schools. He's filling out all of all of his scholarship essays. And because we know college is not cheap right now. I mean, I have a child who's about to enter his freshman year and I'm like, you better get yourself a scholarship. But he decided he was going to run a full campaign school board. As a he turned 18, so he could run 18-year-old student, and not for himself, but for his peers, for his teachers, and for a stronger district. I remembered like this election day in March, because March, how many times have we had to like push like that election day in March, right? Because it's cold, it's snowing. We always get that like weird snowstorm. I was like, after school, I went and like, I sat with him, and he had his energy and his hope were like so unwavering. And it was like, so exciting to see him like being like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be the first one to do this. Despite the fact that he did lose that day. He ignited something really big. His spirit of engagement, his belief in advocacy, and a reminder that students are not just the future, they are the present. And teachers, students, and communities need well-resourced schools in order to achieve their full potential. Michael's story has stayed with me ever since. And so when I became like a finalist and a semifinalist for the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, one of the questions is, what is your platform going to be? And poor Stacy back here gets probably an email from me on the regular. I'm like, I have this idea. And she's like, oh gosh, here she goes again. I'm an idea person. I have a lot of ideas that they all have one common thread, and it's shining a light on the incredible work that is happening in our New Hampshire schools. And like seeing these kids up here, I'm like, yes, this is why we do it. This is it. And with the support of the Department of Education, specifically Kim too, I have launched the monthly Trailblazers in Education Spotlight, recognizing innovative educators who are challenging these traditional methods to inspire and engage students. And through this initiative, I have learned of so many like different things that are happening in our state. There's this guy, Jimin, right, at Sanborn Regional High School. And yes, he was my first one. I It was my former school district, but Jim is like, he's a quirky guy. And he, with a group of students, like re-engineered a submarine and raced a submarine. And they are one of the only public high schools to have a submarine racing team. It was, guys, it was so cool.
Summary race.
I went to school and I'm writing the article and the kids are explaining these things to me. My husband is an engineer. He's a project manager. That's how his brain works. I mean, you give me a plane ticket, I'm gonna go make myself some friends anywhere and I'm gonna learn your language. And so like totally different. So these kids are talking to me and I'm like, you two geniuses. So I learned about Jim. I learned about Tara McLaughlin from the Hampstead School District, who brought Blankets of Hope to their school. I didn't do a write-up on her, but this is actually something that like my own children were able to participate in, where they were learning some compassion and empathy through writing letters to homeless families and to homeless people who I'm providing them with blankets with messages of hope. Cynthia Bibb and Jackie McMahon, let's talk about two really awesome ladies here. They're two school nurses who actually through a Department of Education grant created the hydroponic gardening program at their school. And these two school nurses are teaching children about healthy habits and how to grow your own food. And next month coming up, I actually have been connected from Christine Brennan with Littleton School District at the Hugh J. Gallen and Technical Center at Littleton through the Littleton School District. Let's talk about like an amazing program for both students and adults. So these educators and so much more are making such a lasting impact. Their creativity and passion are shaping our students into becoming better citizens, lifelong learners, and critical thinkers. So what is my dream? Like, these are my main goals. A statewide movement, and you're all like, oh gosh, here she goes, where communities and businesses and organizations come together to support students by investing in students and into our future. A system where educators have resources, funding, and support to create real and engaging learning experiences, where the regular conversations between educators and state officials, classroom visits to celebrate the innovation and to learn about the varying needs of our schools and our students in our districts. I want to take a moment, I want to commend my own personal superintendent, which I wish he were here because whenever I like mention his name, he's like, here I am, is Michael Fournier. I don't know if you guys know Mike. Some of you are nodding your head. And my assistant superintendent, Tom Liberty, who the two of them have partnered with high school teachers over the past couple of years over our advisory program. And I don't know if you guys know what an advisory program is. It is something that through the state that we have, and most high schools and a lot of middle schools have as a way for students to have one consistent adult in the building that they can go to for support. And in order to learn more about the program, both Mike and Tom have partnered with teachers. And because they've only been hearing about like the highlights, like the highs and like the extreme lows of this advisory program, but like what are the inner workings of it? So they decided to jump on in and they joined in with teachers. This is what I would like to see our districts like partner with our state to kind of come on in and join in and see what's happening in our schools on the day-to-day, not just like these like championed efforts. And my fear is that like recently there's been a lot of budget cuts. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about teachers. I'm worried that teachers are going to have to take on more responsibilities at the expense of creativity and innovation. And these really cool programs like Blankets of Hope, these really cool programs like the gardening system or the submarines, that they're gonna get replaced and they're gonna go away because the district's ability to fund in fact faculty and programs for students is needs and what they deserve. That we're at a risk at losing our most passionate and dedicated educators to burnout. I remember within like my first couple of years, I'm a very high energy person. Like I'm toning it down for you guys right now. If you were to come into my classroom, you'd probably be like, whoa. And I remember I had a principal come up to me and she's like, I'm worried about you. You're gonna burn out. And I was like, don't worry about me. But if there's a lot on an educator's plate. And as a New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, I'm here to be a voice for educators We need to support we need support from our state and agencies. The incredible work happening in our schools must be recognized, celebrated, and protected, not overshadowed. And as a product of New Hampshire public education, my belief in our schools, our teachers, and our students is part of who I have become. And as we enter into all of this new leadership, I think it's our time to really like kind of come together, work together, make those friendship bracelets, and support each other. In the name of all of our children, the future voters, the workers, and the business owners and the leaders of our state. So thank you guys for having me today and letting me introduce myself and giving me a moment. That's who I am.
Anybody have any questions for Kate?
Yeah, I'm just, do you do the deal of biliteracy by any chance?
To do the seal of biliteracy, and so it is done
2018, we
through,
did that, I think, right?
what's
I
that?
think in 2018, we got that
We
done.
started it in
Yeah,
twenty
these
eighteen.
guys approved it.
Oh, excellent. And we've been doing it since, I think, like 2019. Like we like jumped right on in there. We have a really strong, like language department, but also at Bedford, we have a lot of like parents who speak the language at home as well, who speak like a different language at home. And we have students coming in. We've had students go through with Russian. We've had Mandarin. I've had a whole bunch of students get their seal of biliteracy in Spanish. We've had French, Turkish, and there was one that is not offered. And we had to outsource, and now I can't remember what the language is. It's gonna come to me later. But we had to like search for it, like left and right, and it was like it ended up being a really expensive test because it's like just like a random language. But luckily our school district was like, oh, we got it, we'll take care of it. And we got really lucky, and that student was able to achieve that. It's amazing. I think currently have, we're looking at it the other day at a department meeting. I think we have 13 seniors this year graduating with the seal of biliteracy. Yeah, it's awesome.
And do you do trips abroad?
I have not at Bedford, but I have done 6 trips abroad when I was at Sanborn. But currently at Bedford, we do have a strong program. We actually have an exchange program in Spain with a sister school. And we actually, after through COVID, obviously things got a little messy. And we were able to just kind of restart that sister school program where we have students who come, they will be coming in the fall. So they actually came in the middle of September this year, and then our students go during intersession. So at Bedford, we have a really special program where the 2 days before April vacation, it is dedicated towards like external learning, where you go on trips, where you go and you kind of experience the world around you, and it's teacher led. For example, I run like a wellness retreat where students learn about like stress relief and like different ways of kind of like bettering who you are as a person in order to manage that. But we do have our program where students will leave and they go to Spain for 9 days. And we do that with France. And we also have we have 2 teachers taking students to Taiwan this year as well. In the past, I have done 2 trips to Spain, and I've gone back to Puerto Rico 4 times with students through a program that is actually it's a gentleman in Exeter who is his wife teaches at Exeter High School, and he decided to kind of run these kind of homegrown programs. Traveling with students is hands down the coolest thing in the entire world. And I'm almost at the point in my life where I can start going back to it because I have 3 children at home that a lot to manage. But we're finally getting there. No more diapers.
My wife's on her way to France this April. She's a world language French teacher.
Where?
So I feel like I'm talking to my wife.
Yeah.
You're saying, I totally agree with you about the cell phones. She makes comment when she's up in front of the class, that she's actually on stage.
Yeah.
And having a cell phone in the classroom just doesn't work. So you're right, it's all about relationships. That's it, even as for us in our workplace as well. One thing that scares me is this advent of AI and AI replacing teachers. So that is the relationship piece that we need to make sure we sustain. So I do appreciate everything you said.
Thank you. I will say, it's actually really funny that you just said that. In my IB Spanish 5 class, we are in a technology unit and they are today writing a prompt of, imagine the state has said all teachers are replaced with artificial intelligence. And they actually have to write an opinion article. It's actually really funny that you said that right now.
Actually,
But it's really scary. It's a really scary thing to
yes,
think
did a
about.
thing with a lady, experienced the Holocaust.
Yeah,
And there's your example right there. So it's gonna be lifelong. After she passes, you're gonna be able to ask her questions.
you have to. And yeah, it is a wild, it's a wild thing. Actually, we did do an AI activity with students where they can interview, so through like different parts of like different programmings, the program that my school uses to like kind of teach students like the ability to use AI, I can kind of create a like a workspace for students, and I can kind of set them up with like an example of like, I kind of tell the bot, for lack of a better term, I tell the bot to take on a certain personality. And that through AI will pull the perspectives of that and my students, and then I get to write at the end, like, please remind students to stay in Spanish. So I do this thing where my students debate each other about Che Guevara, like whether or not he was a hero or he was a villain in Cuba. And before that, like, again, they're high school students, they don't think about what, like an opposing argument, like somebody's actually gonna come back at them. Like, they don't think about that. They just think like, I'm going to say this. So I told the bot to have this conversation with them, but like counter every single thing. It went amazing, right? So then I'm like, oh, well, look at me. I'm like tech wizard over here. And I decided to create one for my IB Spanish 5 class. So I put this thing in and I'm like, pretend you are one of these environmental activists and you are being interviewed by a student. So I put it in, right? It was awful. It was so awful. It was so generic and it did not take on the persona of these actual 5 activists. It just took on the idea of an activist, even though I specifically put in like all of the information. And the kids are like, Senora, this is ridiculous. This isn't giving me the information. I just went online and I found this. And I was like, so what did we, teachable moment, it happens all the time. What did we learn through this though, guys? And they're like, AI doesn't have all the answers. And I'm like, that's it. So there, my students started doing more research, which was actually really cool. So I was like, whew, that was a good moment, when it came to AI. It was good.
I'd like to have a longer discussion later. I've been a researcher and a professor in learning and technology and building self-efficacy and such. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll reach out and talk later.
Oh, wait till you see my business card. You're gonna love it.
Oh, no, give me, yeah.
I will give you one. Oh, it is nice. I don't, yeah, you'll like it, I think, yeah. But I'll give that to you in a little bit. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, I love the innovation focus. Like, there's so much that's happening in the public schools, and so it's nice to go out there and find those.
Seal of my
This
letters.
is what I've been talking about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so our next up is the parent, Lebanon School Board. We don't have anyone here for that meeting.
So this is what it looks like.
Oh, weird.
Isn't that adorable?
Let me give you mine.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Of course, I can't find it.
So was that students get a job? The votes taken off the table.
It's on the
Sorry, Max.
I'll send you a note.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have parent Wakefield School Board. Okay. We have Wakefield here.
Parents are in the back room. I'll be glad to get them.
Right here.
Right there. All right, so do we want to do this parents in non-public session? Is that your preference or, okay. All right, so we'll need a vote to go into non-public.
Second.
Okay, let's. All in favor?
Aye.
So it's
So we're gonna have to,
10:28. Give me a minute and
everybody who's not here for the parent Wakefield hearing will have to step outside.
Yeah, that's good to know. I was hoping a year, but maybe, yeah.
Okay, so we're back. So we need to vote to seal the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
We do. I move the state board accept the hearing officer's report and reject his recommendation and find for manifest education project.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You guys get that? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. At this point, we're gonna take a 5-ish minute break. Just, have a little break. All right, we'll be right back.
Okay.
Are we back?
We're back.
Unity School District. Okay. You ain't here for that? Okay, yeah, welcome, come on up.
Hi, I'm Dr. Marjorie Erickson. I'm the chair of the Unity School District School Board. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have for us about our proposed withdrawal from SAU 6.
Thank you for coming. I don't have any questions.
I was curious, how are you planning on providing superintendent services?
We have a number of options that we've looked into so far. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting with Lemster this afternoon. That's a school district just to the south of us with the same population, school size. They're also pre-K through 8, and so they're very similar to us. And we've started talking to them about sharing a superintendent, student services, whatnot. We've also been approached by Sunapee District to possibly contract for SAU services with them. And I believe that there are other options similar to that we will explore. That's what this next year is all about.
That might point me, I just want to be sure, make sure you understand, you're not required to have a superintendent for the statute, but you are required to have superintendent services.
We do need superintendent services, correct?
And
And
you can do it
so
on a contractual basis, like you.
we are looking at both of those options. And including discussions with SAU 6 about possibly contracting with them for some of the services that we need.
Thanks.
We're quite confident that we'll.
How are things going, Jen? Like, we've read this, but like, how do you feel like things are going colloquially?
I think because we have, we've been approached with interest in combining with other districts in some way. I think they're going pretty well. When we first started this, of course, it's okay, what do we do now that the towns voted to withdraw? But Fall Mountain has shown interest in working with us, and there's a number of options right in our local area that I think would benefit us greatly. I think the thing that we ran into with Claremont is a very, very large school district, and Unity is a very, very small school district. So we were kind of the bump on the tail of the dog, if you will. And it just wasn't a good match because the Claremont district and the SAU were so focused on the issues going on in Claremont that Unity's issues were very, very small by comparison. And so for us, it's going to be a much better option to partner with a smaller district, a district closer to our own size, which is what Lemster has going for it. We're going quite far in discussions there because they are exactly the same size. And we've even combined athletic teams because both schools are so small. And so we have a partnership established there already. So you work out your agreement through tuition agreements, or will you try, we create a cooperative, or what would your plan? No, we're loath to do a cooperative at this point in time because I think we were a little bit afraid of running into the same sort of problem that we ran into with Claremont, in that we were outvoted every time anything came up. So we're more interested in either contracting for services or some other, the thing that Lemster has going for us right now is that their superintendent also is their special ed director. We already have a special ed director, and so we could combine our resources and have one superintendent and one special ed director doing both schools, which is beneficial, I think, to everybody to have someone who's focused on a particular task within the services that need to be provided. So, yeah, we're more going towards the contracting arena than joining someone
So
else in a
presumably you are
cooperative.
now a single district SAU.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thank you.
We didn't have anything in the packet for
Yeah,
voting
no.
on stuff, so.
Says update.
This one was just an update now. Yeah, sorry, no action.
I'm
items.
sorry about that.
Non-action items.
Yeah, the Timberlake
That was,
also.
oopsie, that's
um,
me, I'll take one.
That's all right. So I didn't have an action item.
Sorry,
Timberlake,
yeah.
Either, so I think that's just, is anybody here from Timberlake? Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Hey, good morning. I'm Sandy Allaire, I'm the Assistant Superintendent for the Timberlane Regional School District. So, this agenda item pertains to revisions to our Articles of Agreement that were approved by the voters of our 4 towns back in March. And specifically, those amendments revised the language in the Articles of Agreement, Articles 3 and 12, to reflect that we offer programming to students in grades K through 12. Although we had been offering free half-day kindergarten since 2007 in our district, the Articles of Agreement had never been amended. And so we were looking to have those articles accurately reflect the grade levels that we currently serve in our district.
All right, so a motion to accept or approve.
I'm checking. So for the first one, though, I think we do actually have to vote
I do too.
on the withdrawal, and we're voting, so they need 3/5 of votes cast to be in favor of withdrawal.
Okay, so I make a
And
motion
that appeared to be the case.
to accept the withdrawal of the Unity School District from SAU 6.
Second.
Aye.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. And we get to, now they get a certificate.
Accept the correct word rather than approve.
I believe so.
It's,
No, it's a Timberlake.
I'll say accept and or approve.
There we go.
All right, so I make a motion to, again, is it accept or approve?
Why don't we just take I'll check.
Okay, so
Just
accept
hold up.
and or.
We're gonna hold up.
We'll
on
hold
yours.
motion.
Hold on
We'll
action
yes.
for this one. I've already.
Your finger.
Yeah. So we'll take a moment on that. We'll be good, but I just want to make sure that we worded correctly. So normally we have notes for this kind of stuff, but we just didn't this time. Nodding,
Nottingham.
so thank you.
We'll vote.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Ronna Hasbrook, Superintendent of Schools. And this is Susan Levinson, Co-Chair of our school board. So we come before you because we've had a very involved school year with several emergency days based on a failing HVAC system, which caused us to miss several days of school. And 2 inclement weather days, one in which we were able to go remote. Nottingham is a very forested area, and we are not able to often do remote school days with weather because of lack of electricity and also lack of internet availability. We're able to do that. We're very,
Also because weather is not an allowable use of remote, so.
well,
Weather is,
inclement
right? Yeah, inclement weather is.
Okay.
Yeah.
weather's the
That's
only
one-
reason.
that's the only
Yes,
one.
okay.
The only reason we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
I would propose that we're able to change that because HVAC days would have been the perfect days for us to do remote, but that's another story. We have been able to, it's been a challenge for us over the past several years. We have finally found a solution and our building is fixed. But we were forced to go remote and we had emergencies with propylene glycol leaks and working with the fire department for air quality and forced to evacuate the building, et cetera. But I am very happy to say that it has been fixed. They finally found the solution and our children are happy, our staff is happy, and I am very happy that not having to worry about that every day. And we're having more extensive work done this spring and the community approved an extensive warrant. So, but that has put some real challenges on our families this past year with having to, on the drop of a dime, go to miss school days. And it's pushed our calendar significantly out. So we come before you hoping that we could have a waiver on those days. And we have great scores. Our children perform well. I have a very dedicated staff. And I believe our letter outlines what we're asking for. We perform well on a state level as well as a national level. No, my wonderful board chair would like to add to that.
No, I think our letter pretty well covered it. And I think that we do have a solution in place now.
Any questions?
I'll refrain from asking any technical questions. I'll be quiet. Paul.
Okay.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, exactly. She has worked hard on this one.
So. So you had the 5 snow days built in. Typically, we don't get these requests until later in this, a little bit later, even though it's already. I mean, is there an issue with making those days up? Is there any reason why they can't be made up?
I'm getting several requests from parents, like on a daily, weekly basis, that it's interfering with their plans for summer camps. Because they looked at the calendar and they've been significantly inconvenienced all year long and they're begging for mercy to get their kids into the camps, which are starting that week in June. A lot of academic-based camps, sports-based camps, drama-based camps, et cetera. And I told them that we wouldn't have the answer until May. They weren't happy with that response, and I said that I would do my best to get on the calendar to come before you, and I'm thankful, very, very thankful that you enabled us to be able to come today. But I have told them to not expect us to be able to set a end of school calendar date until May in the future.
Are there any, aside from tacking on those days, are there any other ways that you've thought about to make up that time? You know, adding classroom hours or?
We are very limited per our collective bargaining agreement to be able to do that. Like it literally outlines how many minutes per day we can go, what time it needs to start, how long the teachers can go. The teachers can't go past the student days, but we already have that set to go with collective bargaining that begins this summer.
Can you use teacher development days?
We only have 2, and they've already been used.
And we use those to get the mandated training that we need to do. I've been very thoughtful about that.
There's a mention of the number of hours are your number of hours annually typically higher than other school districts or for total school days? Hours, the actual education hours, not necessarily the days, but the hours.
Our hours are not, at this point, we get right at approximately 990, but that is going to be addressed in the next negotiations.
Have you broached the topic with the union representatives about, hey, we're gonna have to go later in the summer? Maybe we can get some give and take here. If you agree, the teachers do a couple more hours, or have you had that discussion with the collective bargaining unit negotiation team?
We have had that discussion and they're very conscious of that and they understand. They've gone above and beyond. We've lost power several days as well. And we have a 3-phase system. So our teachers have been wonderful and worked under very tough conditions where there's often wafts of propylene glycol in the building and without electric. Like literally we will lose one side of the hall without power and one side with, and we brought lanterns and they've been teaching under some pretty rough conditions.
Tough to ask for more. I get it.
It is really tough to ask for more. We have it solved. We're looking at what we can do with the electrical situation and getting a generator, if that's a possibility. They have really stepped up and worked under some less than ideal circumstances. And they have worked with us last year as well. It's been a period of 3 years that they've really been under the gun doing their very, very best for our students. And we've rectified that and had the entire system flushed over February vacation. A company came in and gave us some really good advice. We had a consultant that the school board has paid for that pointed us in a fantastic direction. But it's been a journey.
So there's a total of 968 instructional hours. So for, if I'm wrong, oh, it's 99, sorry. For kindergarten, you're fine, it's 9:45. It's the 990 for the other one. Yeah, sorry, I was getting on 9:45. Okay.
So the elementary students with.
Elementary, you're fine. It's the middle school.
How many families have reached out to you with regard to their summer plans that have issues?
Off the top of my head, I would go with at least 10.
And how many students are in your school?
536.
So the value of 5 lost instructional days for 500 and however many students are determined by 10 families' need for a vacation.
Well, I can't say it's all vacation. They're talking about scheduling their summer camps as well. And those are the ones who have reached out to me.
So right now, you're at June 18th, right? Is that right? It was originally June 17th, but you're at June 18th for your last day. Get that right?
No, where I'm requesting it to be June 18th. We're at June 25th, I believe.
Right. Yeah, what you want is, I'm sorry, your goal is June 18th, right?
That's the original day.
Yeah. So right now, if you pushed it out, it would be the 24th. 24th, depending on if you take. But you could get, I know you take Juneteenth off, but you could get. I think that the 20th, 32 days. Through that, if you did not take Juneteenth off.
Correct.
And that gets you to the Friday. And it's, we're saying 5 days, it's really 22 instructional hours that are in there.
Right. Yeah, people get that way.
It's like about 3.5 days.
For the middle school.
The middle school.
if you change the date, would you have another 520 families complaining that you are closing the school early? Now we need to worry about everything else?
Probably not.
Don't anticipate that, sir.
So, I would just be. Because the idealist and the pragmatist in me.
Yeah.
The pragmatist in me is what learning is happening the 23rd and 24th of June is really gonna be that consequential in the lives of these students based on,
Yeah.
and how many will be leaving school to get to a sports camp as opposed to attending these days, and.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really part of this whole discussion.
But there are those children that love to go to school.
Well, I'm not, to me, it's.
Not
more of the-
Nottingham.
It's the children who need them.
Needs the day.
So Nottingham is like your scores are, their proficiency scores are well above a state average. You don't have a struggling population if you look at it overall, but everybody's got struggling students.
Correct.
And so that's more the issue, is the kids who really need it.
Do you have an instruction regarding June 19th? Do you have a course curriculum reason to teach kids about Juneteenth, what it's about?
We're not normally in school on that day, so no, not this time. Not that I'm aware of.
I'll just say it, being in Boston, we have a lot of unions, and as Juneteenth came about in recent years, a lot of the unions have negotiated for Juneteenth off, but when it first started, it was optional.
Yeah.
But I'll just say it, I find a lot of people, really don't pay attention to Juneteenth. And it's considered like a day off,
Right.
and they don't recognize what it's about.
Right.
So I'm just gonna say it.
I can say that about Memorial Day and Veterans Day. No, a lot of people just really see that as a start.
Independence Day, we don't. even have
Independence
that.
Day, yeah.
But actually in the statute, there are requirements that we
observe it.
talk about in the Constitution and things like that, and it could be an opportunity to provide an education about Juneteenth on June 19th. It's just a consideration, 'cause I just hearing what you said about the 19th and the 20th. What better opportunity to teach kids about what Juneteenth really is about, make sure that they have a full understanding of it. This is a consideration.
We get these requests periodically, we typically don't. Except, unless it's in really extraordinary circumstances, because we want to uphold the rules and make those kids, make sure the kids get their instructional allowance, so.
Just to be clear, though, this was not like acts of God intervening. This was, it was, a failed system that almost couldn't have been anticipated.
Yeah, well, and then that's the whole point about snow days, right? You can't-
So would it be bizarre to suggest or discuss that for kids who were still available to come to school on the 24th and the 25th, who might need remedial instruction, that be made available if they're willing to come?
I mean, so I think, and this may have been considered, is that that they would allow those kids that gotta go to camp to have excused absences on those days perhaps, and so they would be able to do something like that under the current rule structure, because they would be offering the instructional time, and so if those kids were not there, maybe that they're not penalized, but I think she still is gonna run into her collective bargaining, issue, that she's, it would be Rana who's doing most of the instruction on those days, because she may not have anybody else coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we are, is just sort of in these requests, is just sort of trying to find an opportunity to have the instruction offered to the kids who really could benefit from those extra couple of days, even if it's only a fraction of your student population. So that's where we typically like to go. I know you probably looked at a lot of options here, but what are the opportunities? Are there any, if we were to grant, just hypothetically, a couple of days waiver to have the school available, even though there's not an official school day? Is there, I don't know what your contracts are like, is there an opportunity to offer instruction for the kids whose parents might say, we really want for this couple of days?
I think if you granted 2 days,
that we could, so that would be, if you granted 2 days, that would be Monday and Friday. We could then offer school June 19th. I think that would be a great compromise. And that would have children in school longer. And it wouldn't hurt my collective bargaining agreement because teachers can't come longer than the students. And we do have an extended school year program for children who qualify for it. And also for special education services. So I think that would meet that offering there.
It's a good, we have a very nice program that extends over the summer, kindergarten, academy, and then anything for other students that need
Need the
that. To
services.
follow our RTI or MTSS model for those students
Awesome.
that require additional.
Thank you. I think that for the people that contractually have Juneteenth off, we could make that a floating holiday. And that would still let us do what you're suggesting, to give an opportunity to educate them more on what that day is. I think it could meet all three suggestions.
I just wanted to be clear, so you're asking for 4 days waiver, right? And the 4-day waiver gets you to the 18th? Right?
Yes, so this would take us to.
2-day waiver would take you to the 8th, to the 20th, to the Friday, right?
Let me get my phone.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
look at
I
a
just wanna make
calendar.
sure we're all
Looking
on
at
the
their
same page.
calendar, right? So the early release on Tuesday, the 17th, then the 18th is one day. 19th right now is listed as a holiday on their calendar.
So I think right now, unless I've got it wrong, your last full day is on the 18th because you're. Right. I think that's what it is. Originally, it was the 17th.
It's saying 18th here, but I'm looking at their calendar online, which might be wrong, but it's saying that the 18th is
So,
the snow makeup.
I mean, it's in your request, it says if the 4-day waiver is granted, our last day would be June 18th.
It was supposed to be the 17th.
Yeah.
so. Could've been the
18th
24th.
gets you to 968 instructional hours.
You went to Monday, those are your 4 days.
But you would do Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, we go
Tuesday.
Thursday and Friday. So our last day would be the 20th, I believe. So
That's what I think if we granted you a 2-day waiver, your last day would be Friday.
yes,
Yeah.
because we would go on the 19th.
Yeah, you go in there. How many instructional hours are we counting for that?
And you're gonna do a full day on the 17th?
How many instructions?
We would go full day on the 17th, but it would be early release, early dismissal on the 20th.
Yeah.
So how many instructional days do you guys have per day? Would be hours, your break, hours, yeah, instructional hours per day. I know you might not have that.
5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gets you to just about the 9 minutes.
So you'd be looking at like 979.
Yeah.
If you go to Friday, so, I mean, you're 11 hours away.
And that takes the camps, the
Yeah.
sports camps and stuff.
I mean, that seems like a pretty workable compromise, rather than,
Thank you.
like, honestly, to your point, if they go Monday and Tuesday, how
Yeah,
much
we
is
do
it?
it.
Yeah, how much are they gonna be doing?
How many people like they're gonna play hooky? How many people are gonna actually, how much
How many
attention?
people
There are going to be some who.
I'm
are going
old,
to
but I'm not
go.
old enough, so old that I don't remember those last couple days of school.
I remember.
Those
yeah.
those robotics individuals we met earlier, I imagine they would all, if they could work on robotics, would show up early on Monday and Wednesday.
They're probably in robotics. They will be there.
They'll be in
also.
robotics camp.
I was gonna say, they're probably in a robotics camp, honestly. If that works for everybody, I think that gives pretty decent compromise there.
Right. So.
Yes.
Okay.
A motion to accept the Nottingham School District's school day waiver request for 2 days.
Well, I think it would be grant, not a
Grant.
So is there a waiver of 2 days? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
The bread.
Hey. You know, those Italians.
Yeah, they are good.
You know the Timberland motion.
I think you do.
Thank you for remembering that. We would've
Yes.
got-
Yeah, I know, she's sitting here.
Just hoping. So we would vote to approve.
Motion that we approve the Timberland Regional School District revised Articles of Agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Okay. Yes. Yes, you.
So Brian Walker from Plymouth State University, here with a substantive change. Purpose of this change is it changes the current approval of one of the PEPs at Plymouth State. It's actually in two-part. The first part being it would extend the Master of Ed degree option of this PEP past the current expiration, but then would transition to the Master of Science degree level. And then that MS would carry on with the future program. And I would just add a note that Plymouth State is currently in the process of their upcoming re-review. They're being reviewed in the fall.
Yeah, so thanks, Brian, for coming. I like this request just in general. I just wonder if you could talk about that. Yeah. You know, Masters in Science with concentration versus what you had before. And are you seeing this? You know, what's the demand like for this kind of stuff? How does this?
Yeah, so
compare?
part of why we're doing this is, we had a master's in science program in counseling
Yeah.
and a master's in education program in school counselor. And the counseling program is for clinical mental health counseling, and that has, looking just pure numbers, has about 85 students enrolled in it. And that leads to a clinical mental health, you know, for clinicians in the field. The school counseling program had about 26 students in it. So honestly, part of it is there are already, there's about a 70% overlap in the coursework already. So it was a way to, basically by doing this, combine it into one degree with two different options. It makes the program, it kind of captures the full extent in terms of how many people are enrolled in this program. And then the second thing it potentially does down the line is enable students who are interested in maybe in either field for additional credit, they can complete. So if they're initially going for clinical mental health counseling, they can potentially then also earn their school counselor licensure or vice versa.
So if you're going into this for, because you know you want to be a school counselor.
Correct.
Are you taking fewer of the clinical, like?
You are, so there was already overlap, so, and that was part of that. The actual program itself isn't changing at all, right? So it's same courses and everything is doing it, where the change essentially is with the degree is almost an organizational piece in terms of how the degree is set up. So the coursework hasn't changed. It also aligns apparently, so these programs are both have CACREP national accreditation, and it seems to be a trend that's happening as well, so across the country, so it's kind of captured that piece as well, so it's
Yeah.
trying to be forward thinking also.
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that desire to sort of shift towards the main program with a concentration rather than a separate program.
Correct.
So.
Part of it, honestly, just I mean, kind of a numbers thing and also how things get looked at, right? So we can kind of capture how many students are in there.
That looks good.
I guess the part, again, segue off that, I guess I'm looking at the two columns here, Master of Ed and School Counseling and Master of Science, and when you look at it, they're identical.
And I did that on purpose to show that it is the same program.
So it's just really a name only.
Well, it's a change in degree, right? It's the change in the degree, which is why.
Yeah, so there's just a little bit different coursework, like if you do the education concentration, you're taking some education courses that the other clinical ones aren't taking.
Correct. But by combining to the MS, it allows more flexibility for the student.
Yeah.
If they decide to go one or the other. That's essentially it, rather than having, you know, it makes it easier for a student potentially to choose one path or the other.
I kind of think, it's not exactly the same, but I kind of think of like, if you major in history, you're gonna concentrate in a certain era. But you're still all under the history program. You don't have a separate program for American history and European history and African history. It's all on the same thing, your concentrations. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close.
No, it's the same idea, right? It's more capturing, I think it's all about, you know, part of it, it's all about capturing, representative of how many students are in a program.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you might be seeing this, but in higher ed, well, I think we're gonna start seeing more is, almost like a bigger, envelope, like a bigger thing, spear to catch people in, because kind of that higher ed tends to love to have their specialties, the specialties of the specialties.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's really hard. We don't, the students of the specialties, we kind of have to think more broad strokes now, bigger piece. So I think that's part of what you're seeing there too.
Or UNH is also going a little bit in this direction. They were here with us.
Could this affect any job description that so schools may put out MS versus MA qualification for the job description?
No, well, that's actually one of the things. So that's one of the things we talked about when we reached out to the National Accreditation Agency for KCREP. Just a trend that they're seeing and know what, and actually the New Hampshire standards, not to speak, but the New Hampshire standards just state that for a school counselor, you have to have a master's degree, but they don't specific that has to be a master's of education or a master's of science. So there's no effect there. This is that piece. That's a great question. So thank you.
Good to me. Motion.
I move that the State Board of Education approve the extension of PSU's school counselor PEP through 8/1/2027 to allow for a thorough teach-out plan prior to elimination of the MED level.
So,
I move that the State Board of Education approve the current approval of PSU's school counselor PEP from a Master of Education degree to the Master of Science degree level.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah,
for your
thank you,
time.
Ryan. All right, Riviera.
So I apologize, I didn't introduce myself previously, I just got right into work. I'm Laura Stone King, I'm the administrator here at the department for the Bureau of Ed Prep and Higher Ed. Basically, I'm the liaison. I administrate all the Ed Prep rules, which overlap the licensure credentialing rules and the Higher Ed Commission rules. So to my left, I have Dr. Diane Monaco from Riviera University and Dr. John Serio, interim dean of counseling and psychology. You will probably see a lot of moving parts within the next few months, not just at our public institutions, but also our private, as they're looking at budgeting. As you know, a lot of budgets have been cut, and realignment of programs and oversight of those programs, and some eliminations. And so that's why Riviera is here today. They're here to approval for a substantive change which affects the current terms of conditions of their approval for school psych. So with that.
So we're eliminating the school psychology program, but we're asking for a 1-month extension past our current approval to make sure that the teach out plans for the 4 students that are impacted are honored. So it gives them a little bit of a cushion to make sure they complete.
That's awesome. You have four students currently in the program.
We do.
Commissioner, how many other psychologists?
School psychology programs we have? I don't know, do you know I don't know the answer to
I
that.
believe one off the top of my head, but I can get you that.
And is school psychology a critical shortage?
It has not been. No.
Okay. Doesn't bear on what you're doing, I like the whole picture.
Any motion?
Yes, I move that the State Board of Education approve the extension and the corresponding proposed dates of the school psychologist PEP to allow for a thorough teach out plan prior to elimination of the program.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you. I would add, they've already submitted the teach-up plans for each individual candidate, and so that's already been saved in there, in the candidates' respective ID accounts, so that if any questions come up throughout the process, we are well informed as to.
So all the candidates know the program is now being taught out?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what.
You will see more.
Yeah. Certification.
Right, well, that's,
Yeah.
that's
We're
gonna
actually
come
on
up.
track right now, we may certify again, we may have another record year, so the last 4 years of. It's not officially yet. But so far, we're running ahead of even our highest year ever.
Which I think is pretty remarkable.
Yes.
Wow. Third time's a charm.
Yeah.
Whew. So I've, Dr. Catherine McCarty, who's not only an associate professor, but CTE co-chair and the director of the School of Ed for UNH Durham. And again, they're here with some eliminations of PEPs that affects the current approval for under what the state board has approved. So with that, I turn it over to Catherine.
Hello, thank you for having us again. It's a pretty straightforward. There are 7 PEPs that we are seeking to close. These PEPs, we did a pretty thorough analysis of graduates over the past, I would say 9 years. These 7 have had little to no graduates in the last few years. I believe chemistry had 1 graduate about 2 years ago. But in the most recent, like I said, about 5 years, we simply have not had graduates within these PEPs. And just the maintenance of keeping PEPs open, particularly with very complicated content backgrounds, chemistry, languages, physics, Latin. We're just sort of choosing to shift to PEPs that have a higher enrollment and where we're seeing a demand from our students.
So the same question, where else, Laura, are these certifications taught?
Yeah, so I believe Latin is not offered at any other New Hampshire PEP. There are world languages at other institutions, both public and private. But how about if I'll print out the most current approval book for each of you before you leave today?
Yeah.
And I'll give that to you.
Great.
And I really appreciate that question. It is something that we meet as a USNH group a couple times a month, and we're really trying to be very mindful about the USNH institutions, thinking about where students could go at one of the 4, including College of Professional Studies. It's not ideal, and it doesn't mean that there is representation at one of the public institutions, but it's something that we're really trying to keep an eye on.
And I'm equally concerned about the physics and chemistry. Where else can they go to?
There's more options for that than there is for Latin.
There are more options, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Latin critical shortage?
It is not. I mean, it's a shortage in people's heads. Which is critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge
and
proponent.
I would bet that it is not every high school in New Hampshire offers Latin. It is a select.
Yeah, but we also have like VLAX has it as
Yeah.
well, so if it's not offered in person there, they have that option, so.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Alrighty, I move that the State Board of Education approve the elimination of the below listed 7 MED and MAT PEPs effective immediately.
All in favor?
Aye. I hope to see you on happier notes in the near future.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Can I just brag off record for?
Yeah.
So, we've been collaborating with UNH for, I'd say, what, about the last year or so. Really working some behind the scenes stuff, and I would just say that, Dr. McCurdy has been key in a lot of that work and the alignment, to help, the Durham PEPs kind of get focused on the real good work that they have been doing, so. Yeah.
Appreciate that, Laura. Yeah, and Laura has been very instrumental with her time. Absolutely, she has. So, thank you.
I just really quickly, and long conversation, but something we've talked about on the board, just in discussions over these PEP programs over the years, is how you strike that balance with USNH system, knowing that resources are not growing, but also interest in the programs. For some of them, it is shrinking or evaporating. So, how do you make that collective decision? I was interested to hear that you do actually meet regularly with the other ones, because I think part of the issue that we've been looking at is duplication. It's not ideal to only have programs offered in one campus, but at some point, got to make those trade-offs. So can you just talk a little bit about that? How you guys think
Do you
about it?
want to tell them about EPAC and the?
Well, and so my colleague Brian could I call Brian back up? So Brian.
Hi, Brian.
We're talking about.
So.
I know. Know better by now.
So Brian is the Plymouth State representative on the EPAC group. And so this started, I would say about 2 years ago, with year and a half, when our provost really asked us to as education programs to the original intention, I don't think, was necessarily to look for redundancy, but it was about stronger communication about systems that we're using at each of our institutions and just making them stronger in general. I think one of the things that we are finding just at all of our institutions is that many individuals, particularly in content areas, and I would say in STEM, we're finding are using the alternative licensing pathways. And so we feel like the content departments are able to offer the really strong content. The physics department is very strong at multiple campuses. But what we really did is embrace the work of the professional educator standards. And do you want to talk about the creation of the modules that are supporting that?
Yes, that's actually through the UNH College of Professional Studies. They have modules that are available to help with supporting educators that's at the post-bac level. So related to the ProEd standards, that piece there. So that's something that's happening, and then both Keene and Plymouth are also looking to use that as coursework as well. So kind of trying to find that right balance in terms of what's happening, supporting individuals who want to complete a site-based license plan, maybe not necessarily complete a full program. So trying to strike that balance there with what we're doing.
I'll just weigh in, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing in that regard, which is why we're able to certify more educators than we've ever, certified, because again, I like to say, like, New Hampshire has this untapped natural resource, which is brain power on the sidelines, which is growing, older population, retired folks who don't want to play golf 5 days a week, but they'd be happy to teach calculus on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11. And so what you're able to do is like kind of capitalize on their expertise, help them mold that expertise to be effective in the classroom with students to be able to help move that forward.
Yeah, and we're dealing with that.
Go ahead, he wants to comment on that though, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that piece. So I think that's, one of the challenges there is finding that right balance, because I think that that sounds really good, but I think that we also have to, I think it would be really fascinating. Like I think it'd be interesting to kind of look at, like, in terms of, we're kind of late to the game getting to this, but kind of what's happening with like you know, these individuals that are completing SOEs or site-based license plans, how many are staying in the field afterwards?
So we're tracking.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
And
like,
we're actually
have-
looking for like renewals versus non-renewals and how effortless
Yeah.
are they when they get there?
And look in
Exactly.
that piece also, and then kind of comparing that to what's happening with like individuals that may be doing traditional educator preparation program. I know it's complicated, I'm not trying to simplify it, but I think starting to look at these things, if you want to talk about the whole picture, I think that, and then we can start to maybe have a bigger conversation about what higher ed's role is, you know, in terms of supporting, you know, where all of our goals is, right? So like higher ed's role in terms of what undergraduate students, that's fairly clear.
Yeah.
But at the, you know, post-grad level, you know, different states are trying different things, you know, so I'm glad New Hampshire hasn't gone to like, oh, let's, like Maine, just saying, we're just gonna get rid of content tests, right? So like, you know.
They just like eliminate.
Right, so like finding that balance there, you know, then kind of figure out, so what is, how can higher ed support or work with the Department of Education and with K through 12 schools and some of these things? And then I think what Catherine's referring to earlier is then also like, what does it look like, you know, amongst the institutions as well? Like how are we figuring out what is, you know, we all want to get to the same place, I think. How do we get there? I think that's.
Yeah, and I think to me, just looking at the pipelines and, you know, we're seeing so many PEP programs having to be cut because you're not getting the enrollment. At the same time, we need French and Spanish teachers, right? So it looks like we may be preparing ourselves for a future in which you guys are changing your role somewhat. You've got the undergraduates and you're gonna do that program the traditional way, but finding a way to get non-traditional students and to give them the teaching skills, stuff they need when they're getting the content somewhere else, right? So that just seems like that's a trend that it looks like it's happening. Is that what it looks like to you?
Yes, I think that one of the things that we frequently talk about is thinking about our changing roles.
Yeah.
And not knowing what that could look like, but I think you're absolutely right that there is a shift in the pipeline. And the bottom line, not adversely affecting our K-12 students and families. And so thinking about what does nimbleness look like at the institutional level, which is sometimes a tough.
Really hard.
Really hard.
If you, and maybe you know this, Laura, later on in our agenda, we're looking at proposals for reading and writing teacher, reading, writing specialist, and math specialist. Where do those programs exist in New Hampshire?
They do. Math, I don't think we currently have an ed prep for math specialist. Although I have been in conversations with one, possibly two that are very interested in rejoining the reading, writing specialist realm and the math realm. It's hard to share some info that hasn't yet been decided. But the reading, writing specialist and the reading, writing teacher, I think those do exist and they are available. But there's all.
Are there participants?
Yes, yeah, and if you want, I can get you numbers of candidates that are currently enrolled in New Hampshire that I have access to. I got somebody's creeping up behind me, man.
I just wanted to add a little bit of, to answer your question, and
Yeah.
Steve Appleby, Director at Department of Education. The specialist, reading writing specialist, reading writing teacher, both offered by College of Professional Studies at UNH. We do not have an ed prep that offers math specialist.
Math specialist.
Math
It's a difference,
specialist,
right.
It's different.
UNH did have it, theirs was closed, they didn't have
I would
numbers.
also note, and I will hand this out later during the rules update, a list of our counts of license holders by endorsement for beginning and experienced educators. And those numbers will show you that reading, writing specialists, there are over 800 licensed. Math specialist and reading, writing teacher, there are less than 1/10 of that.
And so this is something we've talked about. I talked about with some of the PSB members this week about this. So those requirement, the proposal that we got in the rules, if you'll notice, it strikes the master's degree requirement in the field. And there's specific reasons for that we can get into later, but it just looks like, again, it goes to our point of the pipeline's just not where it used to be. And so.
The undergraduate pipeline.
Well, even the graduate pipeline for some of these, it's not.
Except we have alt
We have-
opportunities.
Well, right, and
So
that's,
why would you cut off half your leg to support the other leg when you have alt?
no, but the point is, to get to rethinking, credentialing versus skills, right? So that's what I think these rules we have before us is really focusing on the skills. You guys offer both, the skills development and the credential. But just thinking of that pathway towards both of those is just shifting. And I think we just all trying to juggle how we make that transition so that we're not losing we're not lowering our standards and losing the skills we want these teachers to have.
I would add, one of the things I think that behooves candidates that are post-baccalaureate, that are seeking site-based licensure, that do align with whether it's a degree program or a licensure only program through an approved ed prep program. I've always said, from the field, you really get twice the amount of support, because you get the PD and the support from your mentor within the district and the upper management in the district, but you also get a lot of the pedagogical support that wouldn't necessarily be an expectation of say, assistant superintendent, et cetera. So they really are getting the best of both worlds. And we've had a lot of internal discussions about the site-based licensure pathways and, are there areas, both research-based and what we've seen practically speaking, that other states are using that infuse some, not all, of an approved ed prep program, but some aspects that really strengthen the longevity and the rigor of what a candidate would learn or get. So I would anticipate changes, in those coming, as we've done some research and discussions with other states, so.
Well, I think that's what, and thank you, Laura. I think that's what the opportunity for collaboration exists. Like, I think that we kind of had a big experiment, 2017, 2018, we kind of just said everybody, was eligible for a statement of eligibility, kind of open things up. And I get it. So I think now is kind of think about like, so how can maybe, and part of it, maybe there would have been resistance for higher ed, like we don't want to change things, but like, I think we're all in a place now.
Yes.
Yeah,
We got that.
that wasn't my role then, but I think now, like, I think rather than coming to the table, of like, rather than fighting each other, I think we have to start thinking about how can we collaborate that piece and, and also I think, at least I can say the conversation at our university is figuring out the real recognition, we can't do everything, but what we do, we want to do well. And I think that's, so thinking about how can we partner together, and Steve and Laura have been great about this. How can we partner together to figure out what it is that we want to accomplish, right? And where is the role for higher ed? And maybe in other things it's not the role for higher ed, but like, I think that's the honest conversation. And also even just looking at how many students that come through our programs, how many end up staying here in the state, right? Like there's the undergraduate, we're serving a different population in the undergraduate level. Whereas, as some of these kids just want to go to school and then they want to get out of New Hampshire. They want to go elsewhere. The graduate level, post-bac level tends to be more people, they're kind of embedded or rooted here. Like, so like, how can we figure out a better way to connect together to support each other? So.
Just answer two questions that came up earlier. One, I believe it's Plymouth has a school psych program as well as Revere. So there's that. The second one was, the question was around the longevity of folks who've completed a site-based plan and staying in the workforce and are very, 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 I can't say it enough times. Preliminary research.
So yes.
Our very preliminary research doesn't show much difference between a new teacher at 22 years old, be granted a license, and their longevity, and someone who completes a site-based is their entry point into the profession. So it's fairly similar.
And truthfully, like when we're doing this analysis, we're basically, and this is information for you, I don't know that it's a perfect system, but you're trying to you're really interested not even so much how long they stay in there, but you're trying to figure out a proxy for efficaciousness, right? Because we want to make sure they're good. And so we're using as a proxy for how good they are, like, okay, they keep getting renewed, they must be doing okay if they're not getting fired. I mean, it's not a perfect proxy, but it's, in other words, like, otherwise, how do you
It's one
effectively-
indicator.
Yeah, it's one proxy for this, so.
Yeah.
It's an objective proxy, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, many of the other proxies that you have out there in terms of evaluations and stuff, it really depends on the reviewer and then what they think they're doing, or a good job or not. But if they're getting renewed, we know that, that at least they're not being chased out of the classrooms, right?
And somebody finds value.
Yeah.
And I would note as well that if the pathway wasn't showing results, I don't think we would have seen the explosive growth over the last 5 years. I think this fall, we will have between 1,700 and 1,900 educators on a site-based plan. Not all of those are brand new, some are getting a second or third endorsement. But the growth, again, 7 years ago when I started, we only had a couple hundred, maybe 300 most. So
But that's coincided with the huge drop in graduate programs, higher ed, so like there's
Yes.
offsets to these, so like, yes, there's a lot of growth, because the reality is for a lot of them students, it was a much faster pathway to get there, so like that, if you look at 2017 number of grad ed programs you had. So I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's just like, it offsets.
And nationally, the trend nationally as well is ed prep enrollments at the undergraduate level
Higher ed period.
have just
enrollment.
cratered,
Yeah.
even faster than overall higher ed.
And that's, I think, gets back to the start of our discussion about you guys collaborating and figuring out, and we're looking at the credential or the requirements for the professionals is, you know, trying to figure out that mix and how do you add value and how do you keep those high standards? Well, for example, you know, if we're seeing this trend of people wanting to enter the profession, but not wanting to go get their master's degree, then we still want there to be a role for you offering those higher level classes. So maybe people are coming in laterally, not going to get their masters, but they're still going to go to you guys to take some core important courses. And, you know, maybe over time that leads to a master's, but they're touching you guys, you're touching them, they're coming and they're improving as an educator, they're getting the skills and the credentials they need, but it's not the traditional master's program, right? So where you have to do the master's first, then you get in the door. Like, a lot of other fields don't do it that way. You come in and you work on getting your advanced degree while you're working. And I think education's been behind the curve on that, but it looks like we're headed that direction. And we just want to make sure that our rules and our whole system are designed to, you know, capture that effectively.
And if I could just finish with one other piece of context, if you run the economics, and I have 20-somethings, and talking to friends, parents who also have 20-somethings, some of whom gone into education as a career, the economics for a lot of kids simply do not work to go to a 4-year undergrad program or a 5-year undergrad program, take out loans, whatever, do their student teaching of half a year or a full year unpaid while they're still paying tuition. And oh, by the way, had to quit, and some of you heard me say this, had to quit their part-time college job so they can student teach. And the economics simply don't work, because then when they graduate, their starting rate in some of our CUs is fairly low. And it's especially in the publics, it's not as bad because tuition's lower. But certainly the privates are challenged in some cases, because if it's $50,000 a year, and I'm gonna get out and make 40. And oh, by the way, I have to spend 6 to 12 months unpaid while I pay tuition. This becomes really, really challenging for parents even. I've had parents talk their kids out of going into teaching because of those barriers, which is, again, where site-based is such a wonderful opportunity. They can go get a degree and then enter the profession and get paid while they're learning.
Again, like you can do it in so many other fields.
Exactly.
I would just add one last thing regarding, and the talking about the various pathways, and actually Steve will make fun of me because I have like sticky notes and visuals, like, yeah. And in my spare time, which isn't, much, I take all these concepts that people have been talking about and put them into visual representations. And I think one of the biggest keys about our pathways, and I say our, meaning the New Hampshire Department of Ed, based off of administrative rules that the state board have set, is how you enter and how you exit. The entrance can vary, but the exit is the same. So where in that pathway you complete the clinical or the content or the evaluations or the testing, all of that varies depending on the pathway, but the end game is the same. the expectations and the rigor are all an expectation of licensure. So,
Makes sense.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
yeah, and someday I'll make it into a professional graphic.
Sure. Well, thank you. Working hard, she has spare time, so I apologize.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
I'll bring those program books down for you.
We did that? I'm not sure.
Did you get a motion?
Don't believe we
There
had it too.
was,
Yeah, I don't
there
think
was
we're gonna
a
do it.
vote.
On this one? Yeah.
Yeah, we know, we voted on it.
Okay. Yeah, she did do it. Yeah, we did do it.
You did, you did.
You seconded? No, wrong way. Okay, we have Lionheart.
Al Bear Charter School Office here at New Hampshire. I introduce Kim Lavalley from Lionheart Chartered Public School in Peterborough. She can make the next introduction and here for a charter amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's good to be back again. It feels like we're making the rounds recently coming up here. I'm Kim Lavalley. I chair the Lionheart Classical Academy School Board, and I will give his background in a moment, but this is our executive director, Mike
New
Harner.
executive director, yes.
New executive director, Mike Harner. So we are here to ask for a charter amendment to increase our charter cap to 726. The reason for this is we are getting ready to close on a new facility, so we'll be a dual campus for approximately 6 years. During that time, we'll be launching, well, I should say, ramping up the capital campaign. We've managed to raise over $400,000 in the last 6 weeks towards the purchase of this building. We have commitments for more money. We have people changing their estates now to include Lionheart as a part of it as we move forward. And we believe the increase is necessary. I will let Mike explain that as we get closer to that. We are also looking to add the statement to our charter. So our original charter never had an enrollment cap in it as we were looking through it. So we'd like to add that statement as our amendment. It says by the 2033-34 school year, LCA will serve grades K through 12 with an enrollment cap of 726 students. This will allow us to expand a little bit in the lower grades and maintain a nice size high school as well. So I'm going to let Mike get into the fun details and also some great facts that go along with it. I would like to introduce him now. Mike has 20 years in the Navy as a Navy pilot, and he's a graduate of Hillsdale College, which is our curriculum that we lease from them. He had 20 years with Hillsdale College as well as the chief of staff, working with the president of the college and other folks. He has helped open the charter schools under Hillsdale College. He helped create the plan for the Barnard Charter School Initiative. He's worked on the classical education curriculum that they offer. So we feel like he is the best candidate. We felt that way very strongly when he came, and he will never give his own background like that. But we're thrilled to have Mike, and he's done some work and has some facts, I believe, to present to support this.
Thanks, Kim. That's a little overwhelming. So we've been 3 years now. The line is, we're in our third year this year. Each year we've met our enrollment and had great waiting lists. Arrived this year, we had 320 kids coming in. We're about 300 right now. We held our lottery in March. Our numbers were great. We had about 120 people on the waiting list going into that. We filled out our kindergarten class, and after the lottery, and with that, we realized we were going to be bumping up against our cap, which was around 355, and we had another 111 people on the waiting list, to include siblings of a number of siblings of a number of our kids, and then we began looking at in the acquisition of the property that we're going to move to, how we were going to grow that out, given the demand that we have, and operating two campuses, we revised what our expectations were. The original expectation was about 555 or so. And believe that we can get, you know, if things work out, Lord willing, we can get to about 726. And we provided a build out plan of how we foresee that happening over time. But it starts by expanding into the lower grades and then building out into our waiting list in the grades K through 1 through 8. So we'll begin building out in kindergarten. So the growth will come from the bottom and then some small expansions in through the waiting list in the other grades. So that's basically the proposal before you. There is a build out plan in our presentation that shows that. One thing I would like to comment on is I've been to the school now 4 months. In fact, yesterday was my 100th day. 2 days ago was my 100th day. It's a new enterprise. It is a healthy and enthusiastic enterprise. We have much to do, but there's a lot of enthusiasm behind it. We serve about 19 communities. I think if we go into our waiting list, we add another 3 or 4, something like that. But it's a joy to see. I have been around charter schools for about the last 10 years. And seen a lot of the things that they go through in this phase. And one of the things that impressed me most about Lionheart, and which drew me to it, was that the foundation that was set when they got the charter was very solid. The board addressed some of the pitfalls that a lot of charter schools run into year 1, 2, and 3. And because of that, we have a solid family base. We have the teachers who are enthusiastic, and we're working to get better. And we've gone through a successful hiring phase in this expansion. We'll be hiring 4 new teachers going into next year, actually 7 new teachers because we have a couple of retirements, sadly. But that hiring has gone well, and it's a solid school, much as good as any as I've seen at this stage over the past 10 years being around it. So with that, very much appreciate your considering this expansion of the increase. I'm confident we'll be able to meet the demands of it.
Can I add one more thing? It's in your packet, but we recently did a family survey of families who are happy, well, satisfied, highly satisfied, and intending to stay with Lionheart through 12th grade. Sometimes the issue with surveys is the only people that respond are people that aren't happy. You find out all the reasons that they're not happy with whatever their choices are. Very happy to say we had a 92% positive survey come back to us with folks satisfied, highly satisfied, intending to graduate their students from Lionheart Classical Academy. I've never seen that before. I'm sure they exist, but I haven't seen them before.
Do you know what the participation rate was?
It was about 65%. Yeah. And it was actually sort of occurred on short notice. We had this thought as we were trying to figure out our funding for the new property that there was maybe some interest in that, what the enthusiasm was. And so we went out and asked on a Tuesday and asked folks to get it back to us on Friday, and they do. They're enthusiastic.
So you guys have grown, and you're looking at 700 some students in Peterborough. I remember when your idea was first brought, there was some rumbling about, oh, you can't, a classical academy in Peterborough, come on. So what do you attribute your success to?
It's Kim probably can speak more to the depth of that. My impression is that the number of communities that are served is so much more than Peterborough. We've got, if you draw 40-mile radius around the school, we're drawn from communities all over the place. And I think the classical curriculum is a draw to people. We have to, of course, teach them what that actually is. But they are enthusiastic learners, and they have embraced it.
What'd you fly?
H-60s.
What is an H-60?
It's an it used to be an anti-submarine warfare helicopter, but then anti-submarine warfare sort of went away. It's kind of back now, but yeah.
My daughter will fly the CH-53 for the first time tomorrow.
Oh, that's a big monster machine.
Do you have goosebumps thinking about this?
It was supposed to fly today, and so it's like, okay, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna-
that's.
try to remain positive.
Helicopter.
On the core knowledge program, which I've looked at,
Mhm.
so to find out about your curriculum would be really very easy because they offer it for free
Mhm.
for those who homeschool. But do you have do you go with a model of having them come in to help staff at some point to kick off, or do you still, or are you on your own?
I don't think we have used the core knowledge people. The core knowledge program is recommended through the Hillsdale curriculum.
Yeah.
I don't think we've used the core knowledge people to come in and teach that specifically. We have used people on our literacy program. We bring in trainers on that. We bring in trainers on Singapore math. But we haven't touched on the core knowledge part of that.
Just curious.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Any other questions? Any more?
Just
Yeah.
one more question. What makes the family so enthusiastic?
Latin.
Yeah, I actually sat in a Latin class yesterday and it was a blast. I always tell folks that they put their kids there for a reason and that they think that they know what that reason is, but when it comes right down to it, I think that they are fundamentally looking for an education that is straightforward and traditional. And I can't really speak to why they made the choice. But I think that they see good things happening with their kids. The underlying thing in the classical education is we're trying to teach young people what it means to lead a good life. And so what's in front of them, what does that mean? And in doing that, we're maybe a bit more effusive about things like virtue and how one should act and not just what one should do. And so if you're going to be something in life, be good at it. And so understanding what good is and then working back from there is sort of the fundamental thing that we do. And I think that appeals to folks. People want their kids to be smart. They want them to grow up and be successful. They want them to grow up and be good fathers and mothers and community members and self-governing and independent. And that's what we're trying to do.
Do your teachers instill a desire to learn in the students?
Our teachers are incredibly enthusiastic. And I think if anything, they need to be encouraged to be effusive about that. Our teachers come from 3 different places. Public school teachers who have decided to come teach in a charter school. Usually the reason there is they want to do more teaching. That they feel that there was something in the public schools that maybe they weren't being able to teach or love the thing that they taught as much. Second group is going to be young people out of college who think they want to be teachers and are trying to figure that out. But our teachers come, I guess there's 2 reasons why people are good teachers, or in my opinion. They either love what they teach or they love who they teach. And it's best if they love both. They are encouraged to connect our students to what they're learning and what it means. So it's not just rote, but that understanding why something is correct or good or right is what, in the end, the purpose of an education is. And so I think when you teach a curriculum that's like that, you become enthusiastic and it goes to your kids.
Well, with that, I move that the State Board of Education approve the charter amendment for Lionheart Classical Academy Chartered Public School with enthusiasm.
Second. All in favor?
Aye, with enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Next time.
Nice to
you're-
meet you.
Next time you're here, we want to hear the plans for the second campus somewhere else in the state.
And Drew wants there to be a little flying academy in fact.
100%.
Give you a little detail, it's in Peterborough
No.
and closing in May.
You close the
So-
deal first and then tell us, don't spoil it.
But how far is it from your current campus?
About 3.5 minutes, about a mile and a half, just.
Because Nico's Classical is going, we got that one too.
They have
Covered it.
your Seacoast Classical.
Look, last month we had an aviation plane building program. There's clearly demand for a Lionheart flight school.
Yes.
My husband's a pilot, I would love that.
There you go.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the day. You too.
Okay, Polaris.
I'll be here with Jennifer Murdoch Smith from Polaris Charter School with another amendment for charter enrollment.
Hi, I know you're hungry. I can be quick.
Good call.
I am asking to have the flexibility to increase our enrollment from a cap of 120 to 128. And it really is to be flexible. It sort of, I'm a rule follower, and I will confess that 2 years ago, I had a family that had filled out an application for a Catholic school, and English is not their first language, and they filled out all the paperwork, and part of the paperwork was a record request form. So that got sent to us and we processed it, and that to us signals that they're enrolling at that school. And about 3 days before school started, they called me and said, we haven't gotten a letter from our teacher yet, our kids' teachers yet. And I said, well, you enrolled at this Catholic school? Like, no, we didn't. I was full. So they had been with us. Their oldest daughter had been with us for 2 or 3 years, and then they had identical twin daughters. I knew I had one student moving within the first month of school, so readmitting the oldest daughter was not a problem. But in good conscience, I couldn't say, no, you can't come. So I went over my enrollment. I did tell Tal.
Absolution.
Yeah. I was prepared to defend. My moral compass is what drove that. But when I met with Tal, because there's a new accountability report card for charter schools, it showed on my enrollment. We ended the year at 120, but it showed my enrollment for the year, probably because of overlap or whatever, at 122. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is in black and white. Is this going to be a problem? So I was chatting about that, and we also have a year this year. Our enrollment by grade level, we're multi-age. Our 4th, 5th grade cohort is quite large next year. This year we only had 9 5th graders. Next year we have 23. So in order to accommodate our existing students, our class sizes for the older kids are going to have to be a little larger. And I am happy to say that our lottery is next Friday. We have 48 students entered into it for right now about 7 spots. And the greatest need is for K1. And so if I have all of our seats being filled by our older students, it doesn't give us much room to enroll our younger students. So I want to be able to do that. It's also very helpful. I do believe 120 is kind of our best fit, but that year we did not have any openings. Attrition kind of led us to the 120, and that made it was nice. It was just nice not feeling like you had to run out and try to fill those spots, because we are based on charter per student funding. So it is an issue. I was talking to Tal, and I was originally going to say, oh, maybe 124 and 125, but then I thought, oh, we can accommodate 128. We have class sizes of 16 currently. It doesn't really have any impact on materials, teachers, students, anything. So I just rounded it off and thought one student per class would make a smart decision, a kind of a strategic decision, because if we ever did need to financially, because budget is always a concern, you know, that 8 times 9 is a teacher's salary plus maybe an assistant teacher. So there's that reality as well. But 120 is really the perfect number.
How many years has Polaris been operating?
13.
And in that 13, has your enrollment steadily increased, been steady, gone up and down? What's it look like?
So when we opened, we started with 60 students on one floor of our building, and then we renovated the second floor, and we went to 90, and then we went up to 120. So that's where we've been. I've been there 13 years, but it's all kind of, I'm not exactly sure. It was probably, we've been there since probably our fourth year. And we've always had a wait list.
8 seats, it's a small change, what is the maximum number of students you can actually physically fit in this school?
I don't think we could really fit realistically many more. We are in a former Catholic school, brick building in the middle of the west side of Manchester. There is no room for expansion. And, you know, part of what I think makes us unique is that we do have a small class size of at most 16 with a teacher, and in our younger classes, a dedicated assistant teacher as well. Our older classes, they might share a little bit more because they become more independent. So there's a intimacy, there's a community, there's a culture. And that's, we have a whole school morning gathering every morning. The whole school meets downstairs, and I lead that, and we talk about our core values and do some activities. Today it involved an egg. It broke. It just, it's different. It's different, and I don't want to lose that. I would never want to become so large that we can't do that.
So the reason I asked is that if you have more capacity and if you just ask for 8 more seats and then a year later, you want to little bit few more. Just want to see if you can accommodate more, or is it?
We could, I would say we probably could maybe 17.
Because you've been a successful school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, it's, you know, maintaining that intimacy, that those connections. Yeah.
I move that the State Board of Education approve the charter amendment for Polaris Chartered Public School.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day.
Large group. I'll introduce Sarah and she can make all the other introductions. Sarah Arnold with Northeast Chartered Public School in Conway. And they are here for both 5-year renewal as well as an amendment. And she's got a large group to introduce. And so, Sarah, here you go.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here today. I have a couple of board members and a staff member and 2 students who are here with us today. This is Jessie Badger, who's the vice chair of our board, and Spring McKenney, who's our officer and enrollment manager, and Meredith Robleski, who is the chair of our board, and Ethan McKenney, who is a board member and member of the founding board. And we have Spring was a member of our founding board, and Jessie was also a member of our founding board. And we have 2 of our 7th grade students, Addie Davidson and Hazel Robleski. And we wanted to open by sharing our school video with you today. I emailed that. Does somebody have it?
Let me see if I can make it all happen. So let's do this.
We tried this the first time around in this presentation. But you still approved our charter anyway.
I don't know why this does this, but this is big. Okay.
It's small. There you go.
You are giving them a lifelong gift
of being able to be in the world and to know who you are as a person and how to effectively make change for.
Sorry. It's buffering.
More positive world.
So at Northeast Woodland, our guiding principle is really to equally develop children's head, hands, and heart. And really what that means is not only the intellect, the head, but we also engage the physical body and the feeling life of children, meaning that we think it's as important for a child to develop their intellect as well as movement, coordination, strength, balance, and then their feeling life. Really, what does it mean to find joy, but what does it also mean to struggle? Here I have freedom to create.
I'm gonna try it again. I know it's not advancing. It's kind of a
The
weird-
audio's going, but the video's. Yeah, that's boring. It's pretty exciting.
Just try it again in a minute. Let me just see if it looks like it's loading. I'll try. And I did the share the optimal. Let's try it again. Okay, share sound optimal. Anybody has any insights, let me know, but I'm just, it's not working. I
So
wonder if I
part
just leave
of
it.
the reason why I love
It's not-
Waldorf education is because
You are
Here we go.
giving
Let's
them
try it again.
a lifelong gift of being able to be in the world and to know who you are as a person and how to effectively make change for a more positive world.
So at
it's just not
Northeast
advancing.
Woodland, our
Sorry.
guiding.
That's okay.
It's a really great video, you guys. I just did.
Set up at the bottom, between the three to the bit phone.
You want
See if we can run a lower resolution. Yeah, that's one.
No,
That's a speed.
that's the speed. Nope, I'm just trying to,
Okay.
it's not giving, there's not a lot of changes. No.
Link to it, I might be able to send
I
you.
think maybe just in the interest of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to see it.
I'm gonna try your website.
It'll be fun,
It's
but-
really beautiful.
I will send it to you all. It's
Yeah,
really
why don't we take a-
nice.
Okay, I'll talk about our major accomplishments that we've achieved over the last 5 years. So we set out to open a Waldorf school in the White Mountains and have a outdoor education program that's a major component of our school. And we used our charter startup grant very effectively to support that mission. So we have educated our teachers to become fully trained Waldorf teachers, which is important to the core mission. And that really involves integrating equally the arts, physical activity, and intellectual activity, which in the video you were hearing about head, heart, and hands, which is sort of a Waldorf buzzword, but we're really trying to educate students fully across all of those domains as they move through the education. And in addition to that, we've managed our finances very effectively. So finishing each year in the black. We've achieved our goals on our test scores for the most part, where by the time our students leave in 8th grade, they're exceeding the national average in English language arts. And some of the years they've exceeded the average in math, and some of the years they haven't. We're addressing math. We introduced a new math program this year for our math skills. And we were just identified as being eligible for Title V funds next year. So we're able to hire somebody who's a math support person who will be working with students who need additional math support. In addition to that, we've developed an amazingly cool outdoor education program. So the students have in 2nd through 8th grade, they have a double block period once a week, which is an hour and a half of outdoor education. And the outdoor education program is a blend of environmental science and sort of outdoor challenge education. And we've integrated school trips into all of those years. In the 1st graders participate in the trips as well, but not the class, because they're just really learning how to be in an academic setting indoors. And it's a lot for them to manage that in our outdoor classroom. But they do 3 trips in 1st grade, 3 one-day trips. 2nd grade, same thing, day trips, and 3rd grade day trips. In 4th grade, they have their first overnight trip to the ecology school. And that fits in with our 4th grade curriculum, which is studying the Saco River watershed. And throughout the year, they have several trips, one to the head of the Saco, one right by our campus, one to the mouth of the Saco at the end of the year. And they're studying the geology and the geography and the water science of the Saco all the way down. They grow trout eggs into fry and release them by walking down to the river by our campus. And they have to identify an appropriate place to introduce them into the water. And by 8th grade, they're ready for a backcountry trip, which is usually 4 or 5 days in duration. Last year, the students canoed the Saco River from Conway down to the headwaters, and I mean down to the mouth of the river. And Drew interviewed one of our students on his radio show about his trip, which was pretty exciting. He loved that. But I think the most important thing is that our high school, like our graduates, have been enormously successful at local high schools, with 60% of them achieving honors and high honors as they go on in their education, both at Kennett High School and Freiburg Academy in Maine, where some of the students go.
Did you pass out that letter?
I actually have a letter from one of our graduates who was going to come today but wasn't able to, but she wrote a little essay for all of you. You could just pass those around to everybody. And I wanted to introduce our students to come up here and speak to you. You guys could bring 2 chairs. Or just, there you go. And for them to talk about what they found important at our school. They've both been there since the opening year in 2020.
I'm going to be telling you about some of our unique classes and opportunities. As Ms. Arnold spoke of before, our outdoor education class. It teaches us about technical outdoor skills and how to be good stewards of the land. Examples of the curriculum: in 4th grade, we learn about watershed. In 5th grade, about forest succession. We also go on class trips every year. That helps build leadership, confidence, and collaboration skills. Another class that I love personally is handwork. We learn how to knit, crochet, and sew. My older brother, who is a Waldorf alumni, still knits to this day, and he'll like crochet and sew with me. We are currently making leather moccasins in our 7th grade class, which are really cool. And next year we will learn how to sew our own clothing. Another opportunity that we get to do next year in 8th grade is 8th grade projects. It gives students an opportunity to do a deep dive into a new project or skill. We find our own mentors to teach us. I'm hoping to build a wood fire sauna next year. Yeah.
Let us know when you're done.
I'll take that. Great.
I'm turning it
too.
over to Hazel now.
First we're talking about French. French starts in 1st grade. I think it's really cool that we get to have so many years of experience, and we kind of get a head start before we go to high school. It makes me more confident and makes me want to travel more, maybe to even try speaking French with other people who speak that language. We also have this class called Main Lesson every morning. each month we start a new topic. And once you get to middle school, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you get to switch classes and get to learn with other teachers, which I find really nice, and it's really cool to be able to learn different things. Right now we're learning about colonization, and at the beginning of the year we learned about astronomy, which I found that really cool too. Each class does a play, and one of their main lesson blocks they use that time for. It's really cool, and it's really fun to kind of try to step out of my comfort zone because everyone gets to participate. We did the play called The Box. It's about navigating middle school and middle school stereotypes. Every class does a play. Last year, 3rd grade did James and the Giant Peach. I think 6th grade did Phantom Tollbooth this year. We also have many skills classes, which some of them are ELA and math, and we have those most days.
We are happy to answer any questions you might have for us. But not.
How old are you, young ladies?
I'm 13. I'm 12.
Wow, I just want to commend you on your public speaking.
Thank
You're
you.
both very poised, you're doing fabulous.
Thank you. We were definitely nervous, but it wasn't.
Everyone is.
I know you are, but we all get nervous, everybody gets nervous in public speaking, but you did exceptionally well. I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you.
I'll keep going. if you want. What do you like most at Waldorf?
I kind of like how we learn through the outdoors more and like through, as it said in the video, head, heart, and hands, and like the unique classes, definitely.
I really like that we have the opportunity to be outside more than some other schools. Sometimes I forget that not everyone has that opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you have a Maker lab, like a woodworking, all those technical?
That kind of comes into our handwork class too, I think. We don't have a specific woodworking class, but it does come into our handwork class.
I forget which class it was, but they made picnic tables.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
You signed up for the sauna as well? Yeah.
I constructed 3 saunas myself.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
So they need help, there's some.
Gotta go teach them there.
They have to find a mentor, so maybe she'll reach out.
I'm a huge fan of Waldorf and outdoor education in general, Waldorf specifically, so just exciting to see all the great work that's happening. And excited for this.
Hard to believe 5 years have gone by that quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly.
So can you just remind me again of the math changes you made, new curriculum, when was that?
We added a new curriculum this fall for math skills. They still do Waldorf math in the morning. And then we'll be working with a mentor consultant this summer and next year. And we have, as of next year, we have Title V money where we can have an additional position.
Are you noticing any improvements since you started the new curriculum?
The teachers feel like they are noticing a difference, yes.
So the only thing, so I think your application is really good. I am concerned about the math, like the proficiency decline was large. So I wonder if we can ask you to just come back and give us updates on that as you, like at the end of the year and as you're looking for next year, because we just want to make sure that we've had some charter schools sort of get a little off. I don't think you're gonna do that, but just, we just want to keep an eye on that progress, just to.
I mean, one of the things that's very hard is we're testing a small number of kids. So whether it's a representative sample of everybody, we've had years where as few as 75% of parents opted their children to test, and Last year, we got it up to 84% by really pushing the parents to get them to allow their children to test. So that's a struggle, and then our 7th and 8th grade classes have been on the smaller side, but now we're rolling up, you know, as we're in our 5th year, like our 6th grade class is at full enrollment. They're rolling up to 7th grade next year. We have larger groups of students who will test, and I think that partly will change what the numbers are.
The great thing about checking in is if the department has any new resources that have become available, then.
I was gonna suggest, have you looked at, we do have a training series on fundamentals of mathematics with Mahesh Sharma, which would not be incompatible with the Waldorf approach. Really, it's just like the basics, the foundational mathematical principles, and it's for your educators. I think it's a series of like 10 or 11 videos, training sessions for them. That's free on our website, so you can take a look at that.
I will, thank you.
I definitely hear and appreciate your concern, and I agree with that monitoring. I just wanted to add that our preliminary NEWA results, we've started doing more with NEWA. We saw our 7th grade class, their growth percentages were really impressive in our we have 2 times that we're doing with NEWA currently. So that was exciting to see some of the extra math time start to pay off.
I move that the State Board of Education approve the charter renewal for Northeast Woodland Chartered Public School.
Second.
All there.
Aye.
And just for a follow-up, I'd like to ask you guys that if you can come back at the end of the school year, once you've gotten all the, whenever the date is in for your math results, just to maybe just check, rather than having you all come back here, you know, giving the charter school office an update.
Okay.
And then I think that would be the way to go, so they can update us. And then I'd like to do the same thing next year, just so we can sort of track how things are going and see if we can offer some additional help, to make sure things are moving in the right direction.
Thank you. We currently have 169, and our enrollment next year is at 181 right now.
I think I know where you're going.
There was a renewal request and an amendment.
And we only
Oh.
approved the renewal request. We need an amendment, charter amendment.
Got it on
I think you want to do it, Bill?
Yeah, what up now? Sorry, I went out of it.
That's great. We have a,
I have it right here.
You got it.
There you go. I moved that the State Board of Education approve the charter amendments for Northeast Woodland Charter Public School.
I did the renewal. I have an amendment too.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. Okay, so that's the second. Phil, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, it's good for Ken to get a handle on emotions.
All right,
Be here
thanks a
forever.
lot.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bill, all right, Bill, you did, okay.
Do watch the video.
It is really good. I tested it before.
Make sure everybody gets
Still, oh,
I understand that.
We should do it.
Guys, do we want to take another break? Why don't we take a quick break? All right.
Here are the photos.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.
So these are admitted as of today.
Okay.
Okay, so that if anybody was recommended, that they won't show in this.
Sure.
If anybody's added, they also won't show.
Thanks.
So Plymouth State School Counselor has 26 admitted, school psych is 22, Riv is 1395. And then for reading, writing specialists.
So you guys are here for? Okay, wonderful, great.
Upper Valley, meeting too. Okay, theirs is licensure.
All right.
All right.
I thought school psychologists were a critical shortage.
It might have been on there like for a blip. I could look back at credentialing's old rosters, but, because there was one year that everything was on.
You got in?
That's so, but there you go.
Thank you.
Through the front of the book shows an overview of program and institution. So it shows you who has it, who doesn't, and then each individual institution has their own. This is. It is.
Can I ask you a random charter school question before you do?
Sure.
So kids that go to charter school, are they able to play sports at public school?
By law, yes.
Cool.
And not just sport, access.
Yeah.
Program.
You're welcome.
If there's an actual theater drama club, if they wanted to, they could take a class, they could take a class.
My foster brother has been having a ton of issues in school, so I told my parents about charter schools, but the one thing that's solid for him is that he's on a football team. And so I said, I'm pretty sure they could, but I just want to check with you. Say with both. Okay, that's what I said, I was like, hey, send me.
So we have Heather McKinnon and Valerie Dennis should be online, hopefully. So Tim Carney for the department, what we're requesting is approval of a Learn Everywhere, initial application for Amoskeag Health. We have Heather McKinnon, hopefully, and Valerie Dennis.
We are both here.
Thank you.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, yeah. Good one.
Okay. So I'll introduce myself and then have Valerie introduce herself. And she's going to talk a little bit about the prep program today. And then we'll go from there. So my name's Heather McKinnon. I work for Amoskeag Health in Manchester. I'm the Community Outreach and Engagement Manager. So I oversee multiple early childhood education grants for Amoskeag Health, as well as our prep program. Our prep program has been in existence since 2013, I believe. And it is, a program that we offer to different community partners in the area. So I'm going to let Valerie talk a little bit more about the logistics of the program, and you can ask her some questions about that because she is our prep coordinator. But in addition to that, I'd like to share some oh, your audio is not connected. So I don't know if, I'm not sure if somebody could help with that, connecting Valerie's audio. But
I'm trying to, you're both in here as Valerie.
okay,
I just promoted her to a panelist, so she just needs.
I got it.
okay, perfect. So Valerie's going to go over sort of the components of the program, and what we hope to achieve by joining the New Hampshire Learn Everywhere program. And then I would like to provide a little bit of anecdotal information as well, just some stories and some things that I've observed in observing some of Valerie's classes. So go ahead, Valerie.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you guys so much for hearing us out in our application and reviewing our application to join Learn Everywhere New Hampshire. With the PREP program, which stands for Personal Responsibilities Education Program, what we do is go into organizations and teach and give evidence-based knowledge and things like that around sexual health to adolescents. We are currently teaching at Granite State Independent Living. We also go over to Webster House, which is a group home or foster care setting. And we also go over to Job Corps and present and teach the program. And we are hoping that with the approval of this application, we can expand and maintain our goal at empowering youth to not only build on their sexual health advocacy, but also their communication skills and building those social emotional skills that they need in order to go within the real world and tackle on the real world. We do offer, or we do require parental consent for those who would participate in the program without, if they aren't under Granite State Independent Living or another, like a group home like Webster House who has override over their parental rights, but anyone who lives with their parents and things like that would need that parental consent only for the lessons and things like that that we do offer, just so that their parents are aware of what we are presenting them that are evidence-based. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, we are both here to answer those.
Yeah, and I just like to, add a little bit to that as well. So as Valerie's supervisor, I have an opportunity to see Valerie interacting with youth in the community. With this particular program, it's a really nice curriculum. It is evidence-based, like Valerie said, and it builds on, some different skills. Students have an opportunity to really use their critical thinking skills and the opportunity to think about like their own understanding their own sexual health, but also giving the opportunity for them to build relationships with their peers in healthy and respectful ways. This information isn't given in a way that's steering the students in one way or the other. It's just information and fact-based. One thing that I've noticed with the observations in the classes that students, they come in, they have a little bit hesitancy at first, but after a few classes, they are really given the opportunity to talk with each other, think about, these different topics, have an opportunity to learn. But by the end of most classes, so oftentimes I'll come and observe the first class or two, and then sometimes I have an opportunity to visit and observe this, the sixth or the eighth class, depending on, how many classes are taught, that they're really engaged and they're really excited about the material and they're really glad to have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about this. And we also provide resources as needed as well. So I will just share a little bit of an anecdotal, or story. I remember going to visit Job Corps, for example, and I remember visiting one of the classes that were taught by our prep educator. We have another per diem prep educator. And after the class, there was a lot of male students, and they actually held the teachers back and to ask more questions and to be more informed about their own personal choices moving forward. With different things that they had questions on. And of course, all the information is evidence-based. So yeah, we'd love to answer any questions that you guys had. And I will just say that I'm sorry that we're not there. And if we could be there, we would definitely have the opportunity to do that. So I apologize for that in advance.
What's the age range of the adolescents that are being taught?
Yeah, so right now we are outreaching to, or we have so far taught high school students. We are looking to get more middle school students, which is why we push for parental consent so that the parents can decide whether to place their child in the program or not. And with an approval of the Learn Everywhere New Hampshire application, we could offer like a head start in a way towards middle schoolers going into high school, having that preparedness or certificate that they have already learned a bit about health.
Yeah.
I guess I'll follow that up on that. So what is the age, the chronological age of these adolescents?
So we have age 14 all the way up to age 19, and we also present to 20 to 21-year-olds if they have either had a child or currently having a child.
Mention of gender identity, and my understanding is that are we getting into an issue with Title IX?
Well, I think we're potentially getting into an issue with the state statute, and that's My concern. 'cause we
I just
have-
know about on the federal side, that there's some Title IX
Yeah.
issues, so I don't know if there'd be a.
Right.
It's kind of a moving,
That's a moving target.
moving
at this
target a
point,
little bit at this point. in
But
time,
it's a good concern
I
because
mean, we'll have
that's,
to go look at that.
that's in the air right now. As is legislation going through the legislature right now to address some of this stuff, which I think might want to see how that shakes out because this is really incredibly sensitive material and
Mhm.
I think the board would want to see the actual curriculum for this just because of the sensitivity to it, as well as the overlap with legislation. I just think that raises something we ought to look a little more closely at. So that's
So-
my concerns.
Has the department not seen the curriculum?
We have it as a
We have.
board. I think we're tasked with approving it, so I would.
We have not seen.
Yeah,
the
okay.
curriculum.
Yeah, so I would like to see that.
But
What
it is a learn everywhere program. It's not a mandatory program. It's like when we went, there were some other controversial ones we put through here that we made it very clear, like, it's not mandatory. It is, if someone is going through a program, they would receive credit for it. I understand the desire to see the curriculum and everything, but for consistency's sake, I'm like, I don't like.
That may not be the criteria, but so much as I do think that there's
I just.
I just want to make sure I don't get sideways to any
I
kind
don't
of
want- I don't-
statutes.
I don't want the board running afoul of law.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have some statutory and legal issues that I think we just want to double check that.
If that's a concern, we
If
can look
that's a
at it.
concern, and sensitivity stuff, I think is important, but also, I mean, one of the reviewers pointed out, and speaking of consistency, like one of the reviewers pointed out, that this only covers a handful of what a health class normally covers. And they're asking for a half credit, which is a full semester's class, and the answer was, well, Appendix B shows more, and it really does not, to me, cover anywhere near what you want in a whole health class, and I had the same concern with some of the other learning programs we've had about just getting a half credit for something that is not a half credit's worth of material.
We have adjusted though, right? Like we've had like, this is probably more of a quarter credit than a lot of, I'm not saying specifically here.
We have
done
that, but that's one reason I want to also be helpful to see the complete materials, so those are my concerns with it.
Yeah.
I think rather than vote on it, we need more info. So we send this back to you.
So do you just want
Tim?
to table it and then we'll.
Well-
Yes, and I can work with MSK
We'll
Council. Just don't act on it, is that what?
Yeah, I mean, I think, because I don't know how long it's gonna take to get this kind of stuff, maybe,
Maybe we can ask the folks online if they can work with us to get stuff.
yeah,
I mean,
just
the team's pretty busy.
Yeah, of
but-
course.
We can,
so
we
we
can
can-
get you that information like, very soon.
okay.
Um,
But I also
and-
think no, go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
and, I know somebody had mentioned, gender identity. We do have,
I don't think this is
Wait, okay. Yeah,
You're
I
right,
just,
go ahead.
You're right.
You're right.
I
go
just,
ahead.
I just want to address that, we are really sensitive, and, in terms of like, making sure that parents understand what the curriculum is and, what their students would be learning in this particular, format. And we don't have that piece in the curriculum, and we do have the opportunity to have that as a part of the curriculum, but we have not been teaching that, because that is something that, most programs don't want, to have, so that we don't include that in, in the studies, and the courses that we've been doing,
Oh,
from the
thank you for
beginning.
that clarification, because it is,
Yeah.
it is
It's in the
materials,
applications, yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's in the,
It actually
the
states.
assessment questions and stuff, so it appears to be in there.
Right.
But I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, on page, so not for those pages, but there is at 12, no, it's 11. It says that they require parental consent before participation due to content and materials surrounding sexual health topics offered. And it lists them. Participants are advised that without parental consent, they'll not be able to participate.
Then you have lesson 3 and 4 about gender, right?
But I think we just send it back, and I think, when does it make sense to do a legislative review based on where the There's legislation currently in the House and Senate that I think might impact this, but I don't know if it does.
Yeah,
So it would be,
I'm not familiar with the specific.
We can work with the
legislation, but-
program. to
yeah,
make
I
sure
think
that
I
we
just
don't
wanna
have
make
a
sure everything's okay and we're not
Yeah.
approving something that is that they don't want, that the legislature says no to, so just I think it's worth a review. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just let us know like what you need in terms of like further information and we can get that over to you as soon as possible.
problem. Tim and I will follow up with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you guys
thank
so
you.
much.
All right, bye.
All right, thanks.
So it's just tabled.
I think we agree.
Let's just get a hold of that.
I think we sort of refer it back to you
Okay,
and
sounds
then
good.
you can bring it back when you've got all that stuff answered. Okay,
Okay.
thanks a lot.
Changing hats now, non-public schools, we have a request for identification of a recognized agency for program approval, Association of Christian Schools International. This is for accrediting non-public schools. And that's Carol Aversa. Angela? And as I laid out in the report within the packet you got, this is a fairly extensive process that involves the non-public school advisory council. And they did meet with the applicant twice over 2 meetings, and the applicant was able to satisfy the non-public school advisory council, providing a positive recommendation to the board.
Trying to promote her
That was a
over.
unanimous recommendation, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think this would be our 5th accrediting agency. We had one drop off because they expired and we chose not to reapply.
Here she comes, she's
These
coming
are-
over.
These are 10-year.
Yeah. Okay, look great for it. Did anybody have any questions for them?
Okay. She doesn't want to be a panelist, but she's on there, she's just muted herself, so
Well,
I
nobody
don't.
has any questions, so I
Okay.
wonder if we even need a presentation. Are we good? Want a motion?
Could if I could hold the thing.
Yeah. God, it was slow. I got it.
Figure it out from here.
Phil's got it.
You take it, Phil.
I move that the State Board of Education accept the recommendation of the NSAC and identify ACSI as a recognized program approval agency for non-public schools for the period of April 10th, 2025 through April 10th, 2035.
Second.
Jim, I think
Who
you
got it?
got.
Jim got
You
it.
got it.
Jim got it.
So, I don't know.
There you go.
Yeah.
Unless there's a delay in my hearing aid.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, Jim. I think we can, I know we have some folks here, but I think we can get through these really quickly. And then
You
we're
think
just-
so? Okay.
Do you think we can, I think we can move
How
through
quick
these
are you
pretty,
guys on these
pretty
rules?
fast.
Can we do this?
The rules? Yeah, I think we can get through them pretty quickly. So I want to tee up the first 3. Because, so if you read through reading, writing teacher, reading, writing specialist and math specialist, I just want to thank PSB. I thought work on these was outstanding and cleaning it up, modernizing it. I thought these were really, really well done. I reached out to Tim to talk about Tom, sorry, Tom, to just go through one point, and I want to flag it, and I don't have any problem approving these initial proposals, but I just want to bring it up for discussion. Because I think it's worth discussing as we go forward, and it follows on what we were talking about with the universities. So you'll notice that these specialists ones, on the master's degree, they remove the subject, the master's degree. So I like it. And so here's why. And I had a conversation with Tom about it. And I think it's. So there, I think it was, and they explained it very well. Like we want to increase the candidate pool and not be super restricted. Right? So getting a master's degree in this narrow field, so it's literacy for one, and then certain competencies for other. So when I talked to Tom about it, he had a discussion with some other folks, and the takeaway was this was a while, by the way, these changes were made a while back, so we're getting them now, so there's a big gap, but their recollection was they wanted to have it focused on education in general rather than the specialty. But when we started to talk about it, I just asked the question, why are we having a master's at all? If what we're really trying to do is capture down here in the skills-based requirements. So I think that's the conversation we need to have about these going forward is, do we even need a master's degree at all? If we can incorporate, just like we were speaking with UNH about before, maybe there's a couple of courses that give you the skills that we want a specialist to have without rising to the level of a whole master's degree, especially if we're saying, we don't need a master's degree in literacy, just any master's will do. I think, why don't we look at focusing on the skills we want the specialist to have and be less prescriptive about the pathway that they use to get those skills? So that's my.
I have a colleague who is has a master's, and she's a reading specialist. And her school hired someone who didn't have a master's. And so she had to mentor this person. However, this person didn't have a master's, but they did have a doctorate. And he had to mentor someone with a doctorate because of how the rules written. So
that kind of
how do
gets to
how do we work through that?
Well, see, that gets to my point, which is, I think being too prescriptive with the degree as a credential is not where we want to be. We want to focus on the skills we want the specialist to have and be a little more agnostic about the pathway. So you could likely, and this is what I think we'll talk about as we go through this rule process with these particular ones. You might be able to get all or most of those skills in many years of teaching. But maybe there's some degree, some postgraduate courses that you would need to get those skills that would maybe fall short of a full master's degree, but maybe you just need a couple of classes. So that's the conversation I think we should have as we go through this, but I just wanted to flag that for you as something I think we should really consider, especially when we now have UNH and from the state and a lot of other, we're seeing a lot of master's programs being X'd out. Not these so far, but it's just something to consider as we're going forward.
So, I mean, I'm gonna dip into my day job a little bit.
Yeah.
And like, skills-based economy is where the world is going. It is all, the commodity is gonna be skills, not degrees.
Yeah, exactly.
And frankly, I think we've used degrees as a lazy proxy for, I guess if you have this degree, you can do these things, and that's not actually accurate, as we often find. Be it like a bachelor or a PhD, right? Like, it could be just, you can't just assume because someone has letters after their name, they're able to do certain things. It's much better to clearly identify, I think. And I think it's the way the world is going. These are the things we need someone to be able to do. Can they do these things regardless of letters?
And that's what the rest of the rules say. So the rest of the rules are, here are the skills you need. But right up top, we give them a credential that is not necessarily giving them the skills. So I think that's just worth rethinking as we go through this. And PSB is on board at least having that conversation and talking to us about it. So I think that's, so I just wanted to point that out, that as we go through with these rules, I'm gonna try to bring PSB folks in and talk about maybe massaging these a little bit to add a few more skills sets in here that are gonna take place in that master's degree. So, anyway.
I'd just like to know, as someone who's not degreed, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear someone who is degreed in
Someone got a
multiple
doctorate,
ways.
right?
Say what he just said.
Yeah, feels good, feels good.
We're gonna disagree on the last item, but we'll agree on this.
Okay, so with that,
But without jumping ahead too far, and I'm having trouble finding it, but I thought I saw something in here, and I think it was on the second one, which was special, writing specialist.
Yeah.
But there might have been some copy and pasting from the math specialist that carried over so that the intention was right, but the reference to math as opposed to reading and writing. I'm looking for it, but someone else sees that. It might have.
well, there's.
It was probably the other way around.
Yeah.
It was probably the other way around. The math specialist didn't have any of the professional development things on it, and we added that. We copied and pasted from the reading and writing specialist to the math specialist.
Okay, so just take a look at the math stuff that you just copy and pasted and make sure that it, just confirm that it, please.
We'll proofread
Yeah, I'll
that.
take a look at it.
And everyone, this is Andrew Hall on
Hello.
Zoom. Andrew is a member of the PSB and was on some of these subcommittees. He's also here to help answer questions. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, when we do all this reading, sometimes it all just gels
We'll
together.
reproof it and
Yeah.
ensure that the final proposal is accurate if there's any
Thank you.
issues.
So,
Andrew, thanks for your work. This was really, really good work on these, I think.
so possible motion,
Sure.
I motion to approve the initial proposal of ED 508.10 regarding the credential requirements for specialists in elementary mathematics, K through pre-algebra. Yeah, I'm going backwards.
You just want to do that and
Uh,
do them individually, or you want to?
And let's see, also reading and writing teacher 507.52 and reading and writing specialist ED 508.09.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're down to the general application instructions.
I can speak to that. Thank you. Thank you, Andre. So the general applications instructions, anytime we make a change to a form, form is considered a rule. So, well, we moved, right? And it became official. So we have to update, for example, our addresses on 32 forms.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of this, is that update, I believe, right? It's the.
Yeah, the other piece is that last year we had repealed the emergency authorization.
Thank you,
And there
yes.
was references to the emergency authorization on a lot of those other forms that we couldn't take off until it had actually been done. And so it was kind of like a backward process where we had to repeal that and then we had to go back and fix these afterwards. So we also couldn't repeal those forms at the same time because of the way that we did the forms last time, which I didn't know, but now I do. And so there's just a lot of cleanup in terms of what the forms say and removing those references and then fixing the rule text as well to have those references in it.
So, motion? I move the State Board of Education approve the initial proposal for ED 505.08 relative to the application instructions and related forms for processing educator credentials.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Two final proposals.
Yep.
So again, our fee rebalance in light of inflation over the last few years. When we brought the initial proposal forward, I mentioned we had done that study, CPI lookup, and what we discovered, graph, which looks really small from where you're all sitting, is if we had kept pace with inflation over the last 20 years, our fee would be $215 for an initial or renewal license, and we're asking to increase to $150. That was just to refresh everyone a few months ago. Our hope is that upon approval here, then we will go to GELCAR next month, come back in June for adoption with a July 1st effective date. And the second piece, which is the late licensure fees piece, we had that late fee listed elsewhere in licensure. That's the big piece there. The other big change, I believe, that was not in the initial proposal in that last one under the renewal fees was that there was wording about notifying credential holders of expiration. And in legal review with counsel, it was brought up, well, how are you notifying? What's the process if they said they didn't get it? And it became this whole rabbit hole of what do you do? The reality is, as it works today, when you're up for renewal, you need to be recommended by your superintendent if you're employed. And when that happens, an email automatically goes out to the credential holder letting them know they've been recommended for renewal. And then they can log in and renew. That process we've had now for 5 years. It works great. Likewise, if you're not an employed renewal, we send out a blanket email to those folks early in the cycle. So in 5 years, we have not had a complaint saying I didn't know I was up for renewal. So we're just asking to remove that wording, and there was a fee listed in that line as well. And this will just keep all of our fees in the fee table up above.
I move that the State Board of Education approve the final proposal for ED 505.09 relative to educator licensing fees.
You want to do both of them?
And, sorry, go there. Come on. It's not me.
So the motion says licensing fees. But the topic is credentialing fees. Which one is the first?
But it's the Bureau of Credentialing, but we issue licenses. So
And the final proposal for ED 509.04 and ED 509.05 relative to late filing and fees regarding licensure renewal.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
In the interest of sustaining a joyful marriage, I'll abstain.
So,
only you knew
so
some.
Ken and I are both abstentions. I mean, I've abstained to the whole, everything today, but
Yes.
he's joining me today.
Just one.
For different, for different.
That one. I wonder why.
just want to hand out an informational piece.
Well,
of
you're gonna do
background.
your.
Oh, sure.
Take them. What you're.
Fun with this.
Exactly, as well, man.
I'll take one too. Oh, that would be good.
Well, let's think, can we, yeah, let's, we have some folks who's clear in town. Okay, so you gotta go, okay. So, yeah, so
Do you?
let's do a non-public,
I'm gonna try to do something else before that.
we can,
Are we gonna lose a form or anything so we can vote on? Okay, good.
as long as everybody else can stay, we're good.
Give me some.
Oh, is it, then I.
So are you okay with
If you want.
Yeah, yeah.
I just mentioned the document I just handed out. That is as of last fall, beginning educator license and experienced educator license, number of endorsements by endorsement area. And we've got some trends there over the years. So I know the question came up earlier about certain endorsements, how many we had. Those are the numbers. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you.
It's impressive to have this, all this data.
We've been looking at this for a while.
Yeah, but 8 years ago, this wasn't a figure.
Maybe.
That's, yeah, I mean.
There is that.
it's- Yeah.
Just keeps getting better.
Yeah, it does, and Steve's doing a great job. I mean, you didn't hear that, Steve, but he's doing a.
Come on, let it go to his head.
But yeah, but I like having a, like, Steve likes data, I like data, you know, so he's like, oh, we're always trying to get this numbers and try to figure things out. Do some analysis, so it's really good. All right, so before we do that, hold on 1 second.
So Frank, what do you think of the brand?
That was awesome. You know, my glucose isn't gonna be that happy.
Neither one has a lot of sugar,
Okay,
and it's Italian flour, it has no carbs.
I'll mention that.
I'm ready. So, yeah, so we would like to entertain a motion to go into non-public session. Under RSA 91.
Yeah.
A 32C.
Thank you.
So moved.
Let's roll call.
I'm
Hi.
Okay.
2:27.
Can you shut us down?
Yeah, give me a hot minute to.
You gotta go.
Moment.
All right. Thanks for.
All right. So Tim, you just gotta do it the top piece of it, otherwise they just don't stick well.
Quiet everything down.
HB 1 passed by 4 votes, HB 2 passed 200.
No, it was weird.
4
That was
votes.
weird.
It passed.
The building-
How's it house?
I agree.
That's
weird.
4 votes.
Well, that was HB 1, HB 2 passed by 200 to 175, so very different. So that means that there were some conservatives who were not happy with the budget, so they got a little bit closer, but once the HB 1 passed, then they just did.
That's the,
HB 2.
it's the both the budget.
Yeah, both are budget.
One's the numbers and one's the law. But they're
Yeah,
both-
but your work is behavioral, so.
I'm doing fine.
They all
You
got,
can't say
everybody's
we're
got
on
whack. Everybody's
How
got,
much did they,
but still, like, you
how
got
much did they
haircut,
chop DHS?
$46 million.
Like, so what is it?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but
What
that's the reduction.
Gazillions.
That's the reduction, it's $15 million.
Okay, let's see. So 2 New Hampshire students have been chosen for National Youth Science Camp in West Virginia. You guys don't remember, well, some of you guys maybe don't. So this is a program that runs every year, and these are kids who can make application. The governor of West Virginia runs a science camp, and he literally like invites kids from all over the country. Each school, each state gets to nominate 2 kids. They fill out applications, they get adjudicated. These 2 kids got chosen, so they're going to science camp down in West Virginia this summer.
Where are the kids from?
I think it's a PR program for West Virginia, so I'm not sure.
Where
exactly.
are the kids from? What schools are they from?
So two students, Mila Branch is a junior at Making Community Connections Charter School, and Dylan Jang is a junior at Nashua High School South. So they are delegates to the National Youth Science Camps.
Well, it's certainly a good PR campaign, that's for sure.
Is it? Yeah, I thought, because all these kids, smart kids are getting invited
They've
down
been
there.
living off a John Denver song for decades. That's.
Okay,
Where's your summer camp?
what's that?
Where's your summer camp?
In my house. You coming?
Yeah.
Let's
Bring your own
see.
tent.
So, we launched, it's out there right now, a literacy survey that we did, which is part of developing, as part of our federal grant process, that we have to have we have a literacy plan. And so we have a survey out there right now, just gathering information. We threw a very wide net and we'll see what kind of comes in on that. We're slowly but surely changing, I call it changing hearts and minds about the science of reading and making sure that kids actually can learn how to read. And there are still some people, some of whom were in some of the higher education programs that were presented today who still are not on board. You're right, exactly.
Have they looked at the data?
They know better. For Granite State educators, I'm reading off of Kim's list that she gave me. For Granite State educators were chosen as 2025 finalists for the Presidential Awards in Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. So we have had nominees there before. So this was Jessica Gervon, who's in Londonderry. I got Brian Gray, who is at Hampton Academy. And I've got Govan Baird, who's at Exeter, and Michael Shore, who is also at Exeter. So Khan Academy, and we have the Conmigo program. So, and that was paid for by COVID Cash, which is at its end. And so they have now agreed to anybody who is signed up before June 30th, they will extend them for free for a year. And so you have some districts like, okay, fine, I'll sign up. So hopefully we're gonna push a few more over the edge there. And quite frankly, like the AI can make a big difference in the education. There's a lot of opportunity there. I get that it's not a human, but it can make a big difference. So then the other thing that's going on that you might see some stuff, there was a hearing, a federal court hearing yesterday. So the Trump administration has asked for certifications from LEAs and the SEA relative to compliance with Title VI anti-discrimination provisions. We got that and they wanted it turned around in like a 10-day timeframe. Okay, yeah, like, is that me?
Series.
Hey Siri. So I actually have a website that we set up to kind of keep track of the attestations, keep everybody informed. So we had released that, we got it on Thursday, we pushed it out Thursday night, set up the website, and we've had schools kind of responding. We have over 100 who've reported to us so far. Then there was a lawsuit. We were not named in the lawsuit, although there were several. We were discussed in the lawsuit, like New Hampshire did, set up a website and asked everybody to comply with this request. And but it was not, they didn't sue us. But there was and so then they, so that was on like Thursday. On Monday, USAID gave us another 10 days. So we extended the deadline for all of our LEAs. And then yesterday there was a hearing in federal court that was arguing for a TR, temporary restraining order, TRO. That was ultimately not granted, but a settlement agreement was reached, which was really, there's a permanent injunction hearing on April 24th on the merits of the case. And so leading up to that, essentially they reached an agreement which basically said that US Department of Education will not take any enforcement action until after the preliminary injunction, the PI preliminary injunction hearing. So we're basically but we're still in the process of collecting the attestations. Because essentially I have to then, so the way that I architected this is that the LEAs are going to tell me if they're in compliance, and then based on that, I rely on that, and then I make my attestation. I suspect that there's at least 4 districts who joined that lawsuit against the US Department of Education. I'm going to guess that they're not going to send us in their attestations. They may or may not, in which case I just would have to qualify my attestation to the feds. which I would need to send in. But right now, the districts are required to send in the information to us by the 17th. Again, it's on my website. If anybody wants to see, it's totally
This
transparent.
information was what that they're asking for?
Whether or not we are in compliance with Title VI anti-discrimination provisions. And they use vernacular, which is, for some people perceived as inflammatory vernacular, like, are you in compliance with Title VI anti-discrimination provisions, particularly relative to DEI type programming, is what they've done. But it's really, the compliance is, because you can't, DEI is just kind of is not a named statutory schema, but they're really, so it's about Title VI compliance or not. Yeah, so that's where we are on that one, and that's it. I have no news on my end, so. No updates on this end, you know? Although you can't find me on most Fridays these days, so.
Or Monday.
Or Mondays, I'm working hard, you know, like, Angela, twice this week I gotta come in.
Consent agenda. Everything look good? You just want to do it as a slate?
You have to remove the minutes from the
We have to
table,
remove the January minutes.
right, because we left them there. They've been hanging out.
Make
Yeah,
a motion
they
to
look
move
better
the
now.
minutes from the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So do it as a slate, you think? Do the whole
Yep,
consent
I
agenda?
make a motion to approve the consent agenda, meeting minutes of January 9th and meeting minutes of March 13th. And the Barrington Oyster River Cooperative School District Agreement as a slate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I just want to give you an update on the charter school board conversation. I've been talking to staff about drafting us some rules. It's gonna take a while because these rules touch other rules, which we just gotta, the lawyers have to look at it and make sure it looks good. And then I think what I'd like to do is just have a draft that's just really a rough draft. Not anywhere close to starting an initial proposal, but something that they can bring back to us, and then we can talk again about some of the issues that are inevitably gonna come up and that we already touched on, such as, and I want to bring, charter school trustees into the conversation too, to get their thoughts on this, because, you know, we have mentioned that if we are requiring certain seats to be filled with certain skill sets, how much does that restrict their abilities? You know, we're giving them strengths in some areas, but we limit their abilities in other areas. So we want to have that just sort of big conversation. And then if we do end up going forward with something like that, what does that look like? What sort of rules do we write around? What if somebody resigns, right? How long do you have to fill that seat? And I think we need we've had a basic conversation about the skills we want to see. But I think we might bring in some trustees and some charter school administrators and have that conversation about what does it look like in real life? You know, if we're being very vague, does that actually accomplish what we want? I know Jim had met Riccio and he keeps saying, look, I just want anybody like a pizza shop owner. But at some point, you can have experience with operations at such a small level that it really doesn't help run a nonprofit that's, you know, pretty large. So I just think those are the kind of conversations we're gonna want to have around it. So make sure we're not just doing a feel-good measure that's not gonna accomplish what we want.
Yeah, I mean, you think of Lionheart Charter School, the size of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, they're not all gonna get that big. Most of them won't. But I really want to bring some trustees and some trustee chair people, some charter school folks to get their thoughts on this. And we want to, the goal is to strengthen the charter schools. But we want to be cautious about passing a rule that's going to cause so many complications that it actually causes problems rather than helping them. So, but that's where we are. Staff's going to take some time to really look at it and try to come up with some language that we can really start that conversation. That's all I got.
What's your time frame?
I don't know, because it may be next month, but I might I'll be working with Tal in the office just to get their feedback on what they think, and then maybe to reach out to some charter school folks. So maybe next month, maybe the month after, just, like, I don't wanna give people, I wanna try to make some progress on it before we bring something forward. And again, just to note that we're not starting the rulemaking process in this. This is really still the conversation. But we wanna kind of put it in draft rule form, because I think that's gonna help us think about it. And that'll help them be able to be more responsive. If we say something vague, that's one thing, but if they have a written draft of a rule, then they can say, aha, I see problem here, I see problem here, or here's how you can strengthen it.
So while we're on the topic of things that we need to review, where are we on standards? Are there any standards that are coming
So-
down the pike, or are we?
I mean, again, so we
2,
were.
3 years off?
Well, so all of that stuff was pretty much put on hold, given the Ed 306 rules, right? So we always said we wanted to get through that. We had started the social studies standards. But I mean, it's up to you all, but given the impending transitions that are gonna happen, it might make sense to just wait till that settles, and then I think that it is appropriate to then take those up. But those, keep in mind that, and you almost just like, it's head scratching. You know, I think about the noise relative to the 306s, and now you ask education leaders and they're like, nothing burger. Like, oh my gosh, you tortured us for like 4 years. And, you know, and so I think that the standards will be similar in the sense that, you know, nobody even knows the standards exist until you say you're gonna change them. And then all of a sudden they're the most important thing that's ever happened in education. And then you're gonna do it and they're
Or
gonna
maybe
forget that they
we
exist.
begin with, here's a schedule of what the standards are and when they
Well, but I so
fall
truthfully,
into
like,
the
so-
review window. And so just to, you know, keeping you in the loop.
But philosophically, like I'm not a fan of, we should just review standards because the elapsed time has elapsed, right? I mean, and even in this process with the 306s, I mean, I spent a lot of time in those standards because of the back half of the 306s in particular. And so, for example, if I just go to my art standards, are good standards, right? Like these are not, but somebody will be like, well, we have to update standards. And you're like, well, why? Like, what is it that we're focused on? You know, some of our other standards, the health standards that we adopted, you know, they're older, but a lot of human sexuality hasn't changed that much. And so I'm not sure that some of that, now maybe some of the health stuff is gonna have to be refreshed, but they were all based on old national standards that were adopted by CCSSO back, you know, a couple decades ago. But so I think you have to be very thoughtful about which ones you focus on and which ones you grab.
And we're also gonna have just the regular rules come up. So one of the big area of rules that's on the way around is special ed. That's gonna be huge.
Well, especially depending what happens at the federal level and where all.
Like at the federal level, they're not talking about doing anything special ed.
Well, except if the agency that handles funding changes.
So
or-
we'll just move over to HHS, but
Right.
it's unlikely
But
that you'll
then
see
it's
substantive change.
still like we learned from Mr. Appleby today, when you change your address, you have to change every single form. So.
But it won't substantively
if
change
that
how we're
matters-
serving students, I don't think, so.
But they're already in conversations with stakeholders about the special ed rules. They're coming up, so. That's gonna be a pretty big lift because they're complicated and they really, the massive involvement of the federal government.
And that's a client that changes. I mean, what they need and what their needs become and what gets identified is an ever-changing.
Well, it's a growing population. I mean, I think I talked about it here, like this is now costing us $1 billion a year for that. So.
I think there's active parent advocates in that space as well as people will have a voice, want to have a voice.
Well, yeah, we have that and we have, we're gonna see some headbutting, right? You've got parent activists who are very passionate and want certain things, and then you've got
Budget activists.
Local budget folks, and you've got professionals in the field who are gonna have a different take on it, and I just think there's gonna be a lot of discussion that we're gonna have to facilitate.
I'll just throw out, like, here's a statistic that I think is indicative that I'm not sure that where IDEA is even as a federal level. So like, if you look at, I've got like 35,000 kids on IEPs, 36,000. So 2/3 are young men and 1/3 are young ladies. And so if you imagine that we're actually trying to deal with disabilities, it's hard to imagine that disabilities are selective based upon the sex of the individuals. So the question is, are we actually dealing with just different learners, or are we actually dealing with disabilities?
And that's the question.
Just saying, you know what I mean? Like,
No, that's the big.
If it's a triangle and we try and fit it into a square
because we
box.
built the
it's
triangle
never-
system
it's
and we're
never-
saying
it's
like, how
never gonna
come,
fit in that
how come
square
2/3
box.
of these kids who don't fit in, you know, right? So,
But a circle will fit in a square box.
There we go. All right, anything else?
Oh, August meeting in September?
Yes,
Please,
so,
thank you.
we,
Please and thank you.
Angela, we've been talking about this for a long time. I had her look at the schedule of the conveyor belt of rules. August, we can take off.
Hopefully, that's great, because I was gonna have to take that meeting up anyway, so I'm a big
So, everybody.
No takebacks, people. This
We've
is it.
accepted everybody in the process, and we don't have to have a hearing that month, so, we have not taken a month off in I think
Totally.
7 years. So, if you want, we can take August off.
what's wrong with next month?
Let's just do it now.
We're gonna take one off, you know?
So, and we're not statutory, we're only statutory.
No, Frank,
required to meet
we
with them
don't
twice a
give
year.
you a month.
No,
We're not giving you a, we're not giving you a month.
That's something, it's not every
I
month.
can't remember, because we've been so long, we do it every month, we don't have to meet every month, so, but we're doing it because we have a workload.
Yeah.
But we can structure it so that we don't have to do August, so we can take August off. And then, our September meeting would be on the 11th, which is Thursday, but I'd like to move it to Wednesday, the 10th, if nobody has an objection, and that will allow us to get a little bit. Angela's got, some time off starting on the 11th, and so
The
that would,
idea of meeting on September 11th is just kind of.
yeah, I know,
Yeah,
I'm
I
still
get it.
not.
And I'll probably be able to get everybody's material to them a lot earlier because we won't have an August meeting, so it'll
Yeah,
be. you
all
know.
right, so I'm putting in my phone here.
Oh,
It's
is
September.
Philo confirming all this to everybody? Does that sound good? Just
Yeah,
give them,
that's
so
good.
you can update your schedules and, because I know some people have it done for the whole year, right?
We've looked at this.
I do.
I think pretty much every year we've taken a look and seen if we could take a summer month off, and every year we can't because we're just too
It's
busy.
too much, but I did reach out to everybody that, that are regular hitters, like that are always on the agenda, the rules, charter schools, Learn Everywhere, and everyone seems to think that they're okay, they can.
Especially with enough notice. right?
Yeah,
Is
plenty.
our meeting July 10th?
Yes. So what we'll do is, if that works, we'll update the website in advance with all the information, so that way everybody kind of knows, so.
I'm on
Sounds like-
sabbatical,
it
but
sounds
I'll
like I
be
came
around.
onto the board in the right year.
Yeah.
August, hopefully you can
Yeah,
enjoy yours.
okay, take time off everywhere.
And there is one other item, speaking of that, coming onto the board. When I came on, Dedicated caused a little bit of a stir in the upper office here, because everybody was surprised that we had a new board member from District 1, if you recall,
Yeah.
Mhm.
including for Angela. And I guess what I'll lead into is that, even with all that buzz going on, Angela has been nothing but professional, and very, very great in receiving me, and I just want to make note of that. I don't know how you guys will receive if Angela's here, but
She was definitely not as nice to them.
She was wonderful.
Drew and me, all in the same, she wasn't sure.
I got you all at the same time.
Great job. Yeah, and that was unbelievable.
Yep, she handled it very
Makes us all
well.
look good.
I called up and said, I haven't received any notice yet. I'm a state board member. What? What's your name? You know, so she handled it very well, but after that, she welcomed me.
Thanks for that. She's a pro. She's a pro. The only other thing is, I know budgets are tight these days, but Ken, Jim and Rajesh still have paper.
I know,
dates.
yeah.
I don't know if there's a.
Oh, I actually have already done that. if they're on order.
Two.
Yeah, because Jim was just pointing out that he's not at large.
Good thing yours.
I have them on order, I got approved, so we're good. It just, I have to be honest, I've been after them for how long, Diana? Months. I mean.
This is state procurement.
This
We
is.
started getting signage for this building
It comes
2 years ago.
comes through Corrections, that's who does it, so it's in the works, so maybe that'll be your.
Jim, what did you
Some,
put
some
away?
of the corrections might see his name and.
Some of the corrections, it's like, yeah, right, we're not doing this one.
To get the proof, so hopefully we'll get those to you sooner than later.
Little message to you carved in the back.
Yeah, no, they changed it to Jim My.
Okay, so you want a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right.
Okay.